At the very beginning, we see an explanation of several well-known names among the mages in this fantasy world. They are known as those who made history in the realm of magic. Their apprentices even had to study to understand their theories, and even those who did not follow the path of magic studied their histories and achievements. These are figures who for centuries elevated the prestige of the empire's own history, so the people called them the heroes of the empire. Then, we are shown the library of the Artemis Academy, which is under the command of the imperial family. In it, students are studying while someone comments that they are not heroes, much less wise men, as they did not leave their mark on history by themselves, being nothing more than useless, incompetent, and without talent. There was only one person who worked hard to place those idiots in the position of great mages, suffering immensely to teach them. Silence spreads as the previous voice calmly reflects. Then, we see a special black-covered book that lets out a murmur along with a sigh, saying that it's no use complaining. This small artifact pleads for someone, even someone horrible, to pick it up. The only thing it remembers clearly is being hit by a truck in its previous life. Then, when it closed its eyes and opened them again, it found itself transformed into a magic book in another world. Not just any book, of course, but one that contained vast magical knowledge. Everything was confusing at first and the situation seemed unfair to it, but it still found something fun to do. Then, we are shown an image from the beginning where it was present at the creation of all those wise figures, being the one responsible for training them. So, it tells us that it wasn't difficult to create a great mage, since all they had to do was open it, and by reading it, they would obtain magical knowledge. We are shown a memory from the past where a young person summons a huge three-headed serpent. The book in its thoughts lets out a cry of fear at such a colossal problem. Quickly, the boy or girl, whose gender will not be explained, casts a fireball, thus completely disintegrating the creature that was lunging towards them. Immediately after, with a nervous smile, they ask what their master thought and if they did it correctly, but the artifact quickly slaps them in the face with its pages, calling them idiots, explaining that they shouldn't channel magic energy so close to themselves, which leads the youth to apologize. In the end, its theories and knowledge were highly complex, requiring repeated explanations to be understood. It could grasp them instinctively, which is why it called the children it taught untalented. For thousands of years, it trained countless apprentices, but this also served as an outlet. But now, this artifact wonders why it is rotting in a place like that. Then, it explains that every time its previous owner dies, it has to go through another cycle, which is why our protagonist is in this place. More than 300 years have passed since the last time it trained a mage, and now it just wants to train to relieve its stress. So our hero starts to scream loudly, begging for someone to read it. As it screams, someone walks past it, catching its curiosity. The boy, carrying a pile of books, reveals that he is looking for something there, then reveals that according to the librarian, what he's looking for is nearby. Our protagonist gets confused, since someone finally came to this place. Suddenly, he starts to shout, asking the boy to look in his direction, but he quickly falls silent, realizing he can't be heard. His voice can only be heard by someone who has fulfilled the contract or even made contact with it. There's no way a simple shout from him will reach the boy, but suddenly, that small hand picks up the book. The young man looks curious, as he just heard a sound coming from that place. As he watches, the book remains silent and observes. Our hero realizes that now is not the time to be nervous, as he must stay calm and adjust his voice to sound at least presentable. He soon begins to whisper to the young man, confusing him and scaring him, telling him that it's a grimoire and a legendary and magical book. The boy with glasses is completely amazed, since he thought it was impossible for a notebook to talk. But our protagonist asks him to turn its cover and, if he is able to do so, he will receive a surprise. Soon, the book begins to flip its pages by itself, and several pages fly in the wind. It tells him that he will surpass even a novice mage, soon reaching the level of an average and superior one, and in time he will become a great mage. The young man sits on the floor, asking what that vision in his mind was. The book reveals that it is a glimpse into the future, projected by a spell cast by itself. It explains that his magical talent, which is almost incomprehensible, will flourish thanks to the book, and that he will become a great mage remembered throughout history. But our protagonist has in mind that all of this is a big lie that he made up on the spot. After all, he doesn't sense a single shred of magical talent in the boy, and it's all just a deception to convince him to read. However, in the end, it's not a lie that the book can turn him into a great mage, but the young man ends up saying that he has other plans. He then reveals that he doesn't want to be a mage, contrary to what the book is thinking. At that moment, our hero is completely confused, even astonished by this. So, he says with growing tension that the young man should reconsider, as he could turn him into the greatest mage of all. But with an amused expression, the young man reveals that he doesn't want that, because his greatest dream is to become a true royal knight, who will serve the kingdom and fight with a sword. Then our hero asks him his name, and the young man reveals that he is Shayna June's Vejia. The book then shouts, stressed and impatient, saying that it has been watching him and noticed that the young man has no talent with the sword, which the latter doesn't believe. Our protagonist suggests that he become an arcane knight, capable of using both magic and swordsmanship, thus excelling in duels by mastering both arts. The boy looks up, thoughtfully, as he reflects on this, until he gets excited and says it all sounds amazing, to which the book agrees. Then, our protagonist asks him to open its cover, promising to turn him into a legendary arcane knight, to which the boy agrees. When he opens the book, a spell forms in the air while our protagonist thinks that he finally has found someone. The boy with glasses is completely astonished by the spell, which also scares him. Suddenly, a golden symbol appears above the young man's head. Then the grimoire's voice announces that it is granting permission to instruct the wielder, thus granting it the bond to interact with and teach the young man until his death. Our protagonist reflects that his lonely 300-year wait has finally ended, because his training is active again after so long. Suddenly, he starts to shout in celebration, even in a somewhat careless way. The boy with glasses notices that the book's speech has changed a bit, likely from excitement, until it suddenly yells that it will finally escape from the cursed shelf that imprisoned it for so long, which confuses the boy, who realizes it's just joking around. So, he tells the magic book that he has reconsidered and believes that he doesn't really want to learn magic. In fact, the young man belongs to a family of knights and doesn't want to be kicked out of his family over this, so he apologizes. After that, our protagonist, the book, falls completely silent before saying that's nonsense. Irritated, it reveals that it doesn't matter if he gets kicked out. After all, it will give him everything he wants and he shouldn't be afraid of his father. Then, it explains that by learning magic, he will become 10 times more powerful than his father. He could even kill him, to which the boy replies that he doesn't want to kill his father. The boy tries to explain himself calmly, while our protagonist thinks about the long 300 years, all wasted because of a foolish boy who won't listen to it. Soon, the nerd who wants to become a bodybuilder tries to suggest introducing another student to the artifact so it could form a new contract. However, the artifact declares that is impossible, confusing the young man in glasses. Annoyed, our protagonist reveals that it can't happen, because once a contract is made, it can't be broken until the other party dies. The young man is stunned by this sudden declaration from our protagonist, who then starts insulting the nerd, saying he never should have made the contract. Scared, the boy tries to apologize, but our protagonist just calls him an idiot and says that no matter how much he studies, he'll never become a knight. Embarrassed, the boy starts to apologize more sincerely, admitting that he hadn't thought things through. Suddenly, his face fills with rage and he shouts, telling the artifact to shut up, that it has no right to insult him. After all, it practically forced him into the deal, and yet it dares to look down on a knight, leaving our protagonist speechless. With those final words, the young man places the artifact back on the shelf, saying it's been on the shelf for 300 years, so it can wait another 80 until he dies, at which point the contract will finally be broken. Our protagonist tries to shout that he can't do that, but the boy is resolute and says it just needs to find a new wielder after he is dead. Following this, our hero even tries to use the power of authority to make him stay. It orders the boy to stop right where he is, claiming that it is an order imposed by the power of authority, leaving the boy confused. Our protagonist realizes that it's in problems, since its power isn't working, which means it will have to wait until that miserable boy dies. Immediately after, it screams for him to die already. Then, suddenly, the artifact moves from the shelf, screaming for that stupid creature to bury its head in the ground and die, while the boy walks away. Our protagonist continues to hurl insults with all its might, until suddenly the young man slips on a sheet of paper that was nearby. He starts to fall with confusion and fear spreading across his face, hitting his head against the ground, dying prematurely. As our protagonist watches, the artifact lets out a groan of complete perplexity at how strange this all turned out. After a while, our protagonist reveals that it took for half a day to find the boy's body. The corpse was quickly removed, and the library was closed again, returning to its usual silence, as it had been for centuries. We see the clock slowly ticking away the hours. Our protagonist sighs in frustrated boredom, because it believed it would finally escape this place. Of course, it is also sad about the boy's death, as it means losing 300 years of waiting, but it doesn't matter now. Since the death of the wielder signals a new chapter for the artifact, it wonders where it will be teleported, this time. Perhaps to the library of a luxurious palace, or maybe to a stinking sewer in a slum, perhaps. Even to an old shelf in a street market. What matters is that it will be better than the place where it has been, trapped for so long. However, before it can continue to ponder, Footsteps echo from outside the library. The protagonist is bewildered, since it makes no sense for someone to come at this hour. It wonders who could be there at such a strange time and under such strange circumstances. The door emits a strange glow that seems to be mana from someone with talent. The sound that is heard is not a key opening the lock, but someone forcing it. It then wonders if it is a thief, but soon realizes the use of a lockpick. This is not a simple criminal. The door opens and we see the newcomer's legs, but the protagonist is confused by what it sees, since the uniform they are wearing belongs to the academy, realizing that the person breaking in is just a young student from this academy. It then wonders if this school is some kind of factory for lunatics. Still, it makes no sense for the student to invade this place at this hour for simple fun or entertainment. Soon, the woman walks between the shelves. She seems to be looking for something, and this becomes evident to our protagonist as she is checking all the books. Out of nowhere, it realizes that this could be an opportunity. She wonders aloud where what she is looking for could be. Our protagonist is surprised to realize that this person might be looking for it. It quickly reasons that it must act fast, since time is running out and in 1 minute the book will be teleported to another place. So, our protagonist screams that it is right there, in that spot. It says that she almost found it and pleads for her to look at it. Its screams are excessive and it keeps calling out to her while her back is turned. Desperate, it can only continue shouting, but his words are inaudible to her, until suddenly one of his pleas manages to get through to the young woman. It's a plea for her to read it. The girl notices the strange, black-covered book, looking startled as she turns towards it. Then, with a firm step on the ground, she moves with extreme force and confidence in her speed. Our old protagonist thinks that this is a good sign, since his voice finally reached the young woman. She runs towards him as he tells her she just needs to open the cover, and just like that, the clock strikes midnight. More than 300 years have passed since he was in this academy of the imperial family, precisely 109,056 days. The girl successfully forms the pact. For the first time in a single chapter, our protagonist has found a second wielder. The veil of night still dominates the library. The girl, still tired, can only sigh. After taking the book, our protagonist reflects that this person is truly fascinating. After all, she managed to avoid the sight of all the guards outside and still went unnoticed by the devices of magical surveillance. Then, our beloved book begins to emit a golden glow, and this catches the attention of the girl, and she watches it. In the blink of an eye, he projects a form to directly face the girl. Before anything else, he asks the name of the person in front of him. She replies that her name is Relay. Our protagonist is surprised and then asks for her last name, to which she replies that she doesn't have one, since she doesn't belong to any specific family. Our protagonist says that's fine, and decides to set aside some of his other questions, but quickly asks the most important and only question he has. How did she know he was in the pedal library, especially since she seemed to know he was about to disappear? He mentions that she even managed to hear his voice, when his last few seconds were about to run out. Our protagonist explains that his voice is like telepathy and can only be heard by the contract wielder. Only someone with high magical sensitivity, like a dragon or a spirit, can hear it naturally. Still, she is just an academy student, yet she can perceive such a complex magical signal. However, the girl quickly says she doesn't know the reason for this, and comically confuses our young protagonist. After all, she somehow managed to hear his voice, which only leaves him even more bewildered. She was just wandering around and heard about what happened in the library. But then, she heard the protagonist's voice. She shows intrigue about it, as it didn't seem like an ordinary voice. Our protagonist realizes that this is sudden and absurd to think about. In his mind, he theorizes that this girl might have the same mana affinity as a dragon or a spirit. It's not entirely impossible, after all. Among humans, there is a very rare chance for an extraordinary talent and extreme potential to be born. What if this girl had that kind of potential and talent? This could mean that among the apprentices he has trained, there could emerge the greatest mage of all. Then, he places his hand on her nose, saying that first of all, he will introduce himself, since they are in this kind of situation. The book, appearing as a boy, introduces himself as Grenard de Damado, and declares he will turn her into a great mage. Later, we see the girl lighting a candle. Our protagonist asks where she sleeps, as there are 5 beds there, and he wonders where the other occupants are, to which the girl replies that they went home. Confused, our favorite book asks why she hadn't left, to which she replies that she doesn't have a last name. The young man falls silent and reasons that even commoners in this world have a last name, and if the girl doesn't have one, it can only mean one thing. so he asks her to explain a little more, since he will be the one training her and needs to know more about her. She goes on to explain that when she was old enough to tell things apart, she became a member of a thieves' guild and didn't even have a name. She was just called Tool Number 2. She explains that the first to join was Number 1, a boy in a situation similar to hers, and, to the people in the guild, they were nothing more than tools. Life went on and the girl lived each day following orders, but a thieves' guild is never a nice place once you've been there long enough. After a while, they started getting ideas and looking at her differently. They would take people as an example, killing them to prevent resistance, but it didn't matter anymore. Those guys never learned. With few options, she escaped from that guild. Our protagonist, with a mystic flash, states that the next step is quite obvious. After all, she ended up meeting a high-level mage on the road, and this sorcerer, upon recognizing her talent, placed her in the academy, which she confirms. The young man then thinks that since she came from a thieves' guild, it was easy for her to infiltrate the library so easily. Our protagonist asks her if Riley has been bullied at the academy, to which she replies yes, but that for now it's manageable. After all, a friend named Michael ended up helping her and our protagonist recognizes him, then he extends his hand saying that they should get along from now on, as he will train her to become a great sorceress. The girl, with a slight smile, says she's counting on him, but they are interrupted by a shout calling for Riley. Our protagonist is confused at first. While Riley maintains her usual monotone expression, the voice shouts that they had to sleep in a horrible place because of her, and the little legendary book asks what is happening, since no one else should be there. Realizing she is being bullied, our protagonist questions her about it, to which she replies that everything she told him before was just a lie. Suddenly, the doors burst open, revealing 3 furious girls and one who is completely terrified. The scene changes to the next day, with the sun rising over the academy. Our protagonist, tied up in his book form, watches his friend lying on the floor, completely beaten up by those girls. Despite this, she claims she's fine, but our wise old man comments on how difficult it must be to deal with those nobles, as she would be expelled if she fought back. The old, time-worn artifact points out that attending the academy under such conditions won't leave her any time to learn anything. If even the boys are causing trouble, how could she possibly learn magic? This makes her realize of the gravity of the situation. The young woman stands up and asks what she should do, to which our protagonist offers her 2 options. She can endure this life and learn magic with him in an extremely limited time, or she can choose the simpler option, to leave the academy. She begins to think about what the best choice is, but the youthful-looking book reveals that there is no clearly better option. After all, an oppressed life with a guaranteed future at the academy is something everyone dreams of, but there is also a free life with an uncertain future outside. With this, he leaves the young blonde woman deep in thought, and Riley finally makes her final decision. A little later, they both leave the academy, where she used to study. The book points out that the withdrawal process takes less than 3 minutes, to which the girl replies that it's not surprising, since it's just filling out paperwork. She also confirms that she really is the only one who can see him, to which our protagonist explains that it's just a physical form to communicate with his contractor. In the end, however, it all turns out to be a letdown, as the academy offers many privileges that the girl, in retrospect, was not aware of. These included special artifacts as prizes from the annual tournaments, as well as potions with various special effects given to the top students. The blonde then asks why he's telling her that now, when he could have said it long before she made her final decision. With a mischievous smile, our bound protagonist asks if she really wants to regret it now, to which she replies that's not the case. The girl then explains that the storage room is on the opposite side of the main gate, so they need to go back, which confuses our little book, as he doesn't understand the plan. In her usual monotone voice, the young woman reveals that the real plan is to simply steal the artifacts and the reagents from the academy. This confuses our protagonist, who doesn't initially understand her reasoning, but soon, she explains that, with the combined talent from his teachings, if she had stayed at Lemus, the items would have eventually ended up in her hands. She cracks a triumphant smile and finishes her explanation, saying that it's not theft, but reclaiming what rightfully belongs to her. Although our protagonist knows it's wrong, they soon reach a darker place, where our protagonist asks how she finds these ways out, and Riley replies that there's always a way. The two begin to walk calmly, as our protagonist looks up. Soon, he notices that the path ahead is essentially a crossroads, and asks if she knows which way to go, to which she replies that she doesn't. Our young book then decides to teach her a basic technique, since finding a known path is like tracking magic. The girl explains that she also learned this at Lemus. Suddenly, a blue aura begins to envelop her, as her eyes close in deep concentration. Soon, a sphere of energy forms in her hands as she whispers an inaudible incantation. The sphere begins to pulse, emitting an extremely bright light that spreads through the area. This is how tracking magic is used to guide them in the right direction. The bluish energy travels down both paths simultaneously, revealing all the hidden traps, even pits, with spikes that were very well hidden. The girl then notices 3 traps on the left path. While the right path is a dead end, she recommends going left, and asks what her book thinks. To which our protagonist replies that it is fine and stable, but something feels strange. Since it is so common and predictable, it becomes highly suspicious. She shouldn't be limited by the rules imposed by fools, because she is far superior, and they should try another method instead of casting a spell in a single direction. Riley can easily release the same energy in different directions without being limited to the paths. Quickly, a cluster of energy begins to envelop them. Our book immediately explains that she must extend her magic, without hesitation and in all 3 spatial dimensions. However, she must remember that this is just the beginning of a technique, simple, performed with the utmost care and focus. She must concentrate all her attention on every particle of magic that bounces back to her. In this way, she will be able to track every magic particle she released, and more importantly, understand her surroundings as a unified vision. With her eyes closed, she begins to use her energy sense with much greater concentration. Our protagonist instructs her to visualize it as her own sight, above all else, as an expansive extension of herself. Quickly, with impressive talent, she confirms that she can see everything, as a representation of a complex map. Soon we see a moment in the future where they have already left the academy that imprisoned our dear book for so long. Incredibly, inside a bag are all the items that the protagonist mentioned earlier. Our youthful-looking book praises her, saying she did very well, expressing his surprise at how well she did. He then explains that for a first attempt, it was the best he has ever seen, and now it is time to say goodbye to that place. They are in. He observes the horizon with a slightly pensive tone, since after 3 long centuries, he has finally escaped from that horrible and boring place. Then he turns his gaze to the side, facing his companion, and so he decides to clarify something between them. He concludes by saying that she is special in many ways, but she still risked everything to find him, and most importantly, even went so far as to leave the academy where she was doing very well. All of that just to learn magic from the legendary book, which leads him to question what her true goal is. The scene quickly changes to a sky full of stars that are actually embers rising from a forest. From the sky, bright embers fall onto a house already engulfed in flames. Inside, people are begging for their lives, while they are being slaughtered. The perpetrators are mages throwing fireballs that set ablaze those who plead for salvation. Among the victims, we see Riley being dragged by a younger boy, looking around in distress. She sees the desolate scene. Suddenly, someone yells at her to run faster, and she sees a man in front of her. It is her dear father, screaming for them to run as fast as they can without looking back. Returning to the present, our protagonist asks why she wants to learn magic. She seems somewhat surprised by the question. She quickly replies that she has certain goals that require strength, so she needs to become stronger. He thinks that those who seek to learn magic often have revenge as a path in their lives. She immediately confirms that her goal is revenge. The young man wants to ask for more details, but he knows it is not right to talk about the tragic past of someone. It is never pleasant, and this case is especially delicate, especially when you have had a dark childhood like our dear protagonist. Riley pauses to reflect, considering they have barely met and are just starting to get to know each other, but he is quickly interrupted by Riley, who asks if he is not going to say anything. Confused, he asks what she means, and she explains that he must have a reason. After all, anyone with self-respect has a purpose, and even a reincarnated book like him must have a reason for training mages like her. The boy reflects on the reasons why he trains sorcerers, the reason why he shares all his knowledge without holding anything back, but the real reason seems to be something quite dark. He then asks if it really matters with a grim expression. The magic book admits that it does, simply because it is his only source of entertainment in his life of confinement. After all, if you think about it, there is nothing more fun to do, so he simply finds joy in training new mages, which Riley apparently understands. Soon we see a room where the two are currently located. Riley admits that she left the academy quite abruptly and asks what he plans to do now. The young book asks if she has a recommendation from her professor, then asks her to show it to him, since it is something very important. Riley quickly pulls out the paper and begins to read it calmly. The letter says she is recommended for the Magic Tower of Iranis, and the book immediately notices something about the name, but starts to wonder where it is located. He was expecting a recommendation for one of the 5 great towers of the Empire, at least a well-established magic tower, but if he does not recognize it, it was probably founded in the 300 years he spent in the library. A magic tower is a place where mages can build connections, and the position of a great mage is not something achieved with skills alone. There is no better place than a magic tower to build political influence. However, in the end, he had never heard of such a peculiar name. Suddenly, Riley calls the magic book's attention, leaving him confused. The girl explains, clearly baffled, that the magic tower of Hantes is actually one of the 5 great magic towers, confusing the book even more. Both of them are now looking at a table with the book open. Quickly, the young woman explains that to understand the magic tower, one must first know Jan Arons, its founder. She then shows a picture of an old man depicted in the pages of the book. The youthful-looking book asks why there is a portrait of the man on his deathbed, but the girl quickly explains that that was his prime. This leaves the book perplexed, as she further explains that the old man was at least 40 years old when the portrait was painted. When the book asks when he passed away, he is surprised to learn that Jan Arons is still alive, even though the portrait is over 300 years old. If our young protagonist had to guess, the old man might be some kind of half-elf, but Riley quickly reveals that he is not and says that it's rude to assume something like that anyway. Although he reached the highest rank of mage, this man is considered a pinnacle. For having achieved a feat greater than all the archmages, it's a fact that the entire academic society is trying to grant him the title of archmage, since it can be said that he single-handedly raised the status of the magic tower. But our protagonist thinks it still makes no sense, since 300 years have passed, which you could say is a long time, because for the one trapped in the library it felt like an eternity. However, it's not enough time to change the landscape of the Empire's magic towers, something he doesn't know how could have happened. Immortality, that mortals dream of, continues to exist without ever being attained, and this phrase was spoken by this man's master, named Martha Ferrick. This surprises our childlike book, because Yair Anes reached the realm of immortality and became a high-level archmage, enduring for hundreds of years. On top of that, he shares the same aspiration as his master, Martha Ferrick. This new information leaves our young protagonist silent for a moment. Soon, some time passes and we see them in another location. The port is illuminated by the dim light of dusk. The light reflects on the water, creating an almost relaxing image. Quickly, Riley seems extremely impressed by the royal capital, and our little book is surprised that it's her first time there. The girl, completely excited, wants to explore immediately, to which the protagonist suggests they do so on the island. There's a rare specialty, unicorn skewers. The girl, with several in her hands, comments that it's a place truly unique for selling legendary meat, only to be corrected by the book, revealing that it's actually lamb meat. Our clueless blonde is shocked, genuinely believing it was the meat of a mystical and rare creature, leaving our protagonist surprised by her naivete. Irritated, she exclaims that she feels cheated and wants a refund, but our little book just tells her to eat it all, so Riley continues, eating as she heads towards a certain place. Suddenly, our protagonist stops and looks up, apparently observing something, catching Riley's attention. She turns her gaze to the point where he is focused. It's a set of statues of the 5 greatest mages to have ever set foot in the Empire. She explains that she heard they were the greatest and most amazing geniuses, with a tremendous passion for magic. Our boy then reveals that they weren't geniuses, they were a bunch of idiots. However, those people were the type to overcome any difficulty that stood in their way, and that's what made them grow so much. He recalls her question about his goal and purpose in creating mages. He reveals that it's simply to transform the contractors into great mages, but beyond that, he has another personal motive, to get revenge on those who turned him into a sheet of paper. That's why his disciples face so many dangers and complicated situations. Martha even tried to create a ritual of resurrection, but in the end, she failed. However, as far as he remembers, his student, until the moment of her death, had no disciples. Riley, confused, wonders if Yair lied about his history, which our protagonist confirms with Furia, then extends his fist toward his companion, declaring that they will go to that tower because he cannot forgive someone who is impersonating the disciple of his beloved student. With a calm smile, Riley says that they will make a promise. Between them, she will seek revenge on Yair, and in exchange, our protagonist will help her with her personal revenge. With a satisfied smile, the protagonist simply thinks that she is very young, but soon adds his part out loud, saying that he will do his best. That day they made an oath that would accompany them on their journey as a symbol of revenge, marking the beginning of their path together. Suddenly, we see our protagonist in a flashback. Approximately 5 years after reincarnating as a grimoire, He was stolen from a simple shop by a boy named Feel, who survived by wandering the slums. The boy then named him GMW, claiming that it comes from the ancient term for grimoire. Our protagonist refuses to accept being called anything other than a grimoire, but the boy insists on calling him that and, with the majestic smile of a child who has their first friend, he calls him by the name that was given to the protagonist. The protagonist thinks about how he was his first contractor, and yet it remains a special memory for him, as he was confused right after becoming a grimoire. Feel was ultimately his little light that brought happiness for a moment. In the end, he wanted to return that favor. Feel puts his hands together, asking if he is doing it right, since he doesn't feel anything. Our protagonist explains that he must wait a bit, that he will feel a slight tingling sensation, and that he must slowly guide the energy toward his mana core. The boy says it's working, but mentions that it hurts a little, to which our protagonist reassures him by saying it's normal and that he should just keep going. Feel says he's getting warm and that it's becoming more and more unbearable to handle. With an arrogant tone, our protagonist tells him to stop complaining, as he must endure it all to obtain magical knowledge and that he must continue. But, in the blink of an eye, the energy starts to spin out of control, and the boy screams that it's too hot to bear, but that he can't stop. With a shout, our protagonist asks him why he is rushing so much, warning that if he continues, an accident might happen. But suddenly, his contractor's face explodes in an instant. The blood from the death of his little light splashes onto his face. He remains silent, staring at the corpse of his first friend. All he can do is call out his name, hoping he is still alive. The scene changes to a carriage in which he is currently sitting. Our little book is looking outside, as neutral as ever, but soon he calls out the name of his blonde companion who is sitting beside him. She looks at him, asking what's wrong. Our protagonist glances sideways at the coachman, subtly signaling that she shouldn't speak openly with others nearby. Ever since the authority of the bond was established, Riley and he share a certain level of mutual understanding. By adding a little vocalization through mana, it is possible to establish mental contact, also known as telepathy. In a flashback, the boy says that no one would think of making unicorn skewers, to which Riley suggests making a bet, and they both agree, but our protagonist immediately notices something. He tells Riley not to even dream of doing something so absurd, to which she confidently replies that she already won the bet. Then, she asks him why he hadn't taught her such a simple technique before, leaving him confused. He starts to carefully consider his answer, thinking to himself that, to be honest, he found it kind of cute when Riley whispered near other people, but he knows that if someone else says something like that, she'll get mad. So it's better to stay quiet. He is startled when Riley, in a threatening tone, says quickly that she knows all of Little Book's feelings. Changing the subject, she mentions that the Irani's tower probably has a selection event, but they don't want promising candidates like her. Instead, they're looking for fully trained and vetted mages, leaving the girl silent for a moment. Clearly reflecting on his words, the selection test is a place of strict merit for Riley to be accepted into the Hanti's magic tower. She must give it her all and stand out among other skilled mages. As he explains it, ordinary mages usually spend their entire lives preparing for this test, which is why it's known as the Graveyard of Prodigies. Still, they will try the test this year, which confuses our protagonist since, after all, reaching the level of an intermediate mage or higher in just 6 months seems impossible, but Little Book confidently declares that it's completely possible with his help. She will pass the test in less than 6 months. With a wide smile, he assures her that everything is already prepared. Soon, the carriage stops in what appears to be an abandoned cemetery. The coachman is confused and even scared, pointing out that the place is heavily haunted, and asks if this is really the place. Our protagonist confirms that this is the site and tells him to leave them there. Once the older man leaves, the two are left alone. Our protagonist declares that this will be their training ground for the next 6 months. Furthermore, it's a place where his former disciple resides, but the girl says that must be impossible, as she can't believe someone would still be alive after 300 years. A little smug, our guy states that he is neither alive nor dead. This only confuses the blonde girl further, leaving her unsure of what to ask next. However, our protagonist quickly reveals that one of his disciples in particular became a lich. This very disciple, surrounded by a dark aura, senses the presence of his former master alongside a younger girl. Only a great mage can transform into a lich, and when he was alive, this disciple was truly a great mage. The young woman then asks where the lich is right now, since all she sees are trees, to which our guy replies that she'll have to find out for herself, as it's a kind of test. Even more confused, Riley asks what kind of test this is, since something like this in a place like this doesn't seem right. Our guy sighs, saying that those who can't find him are not worthy of learning magic, leaving Riley to think that this all seems even stranger. With a blue aura emanating from her body, She prepares herself. Grenard asks if the blonde girl knows how to find him, to which she confidently replies that she does. The protagonist reflects that finding the Lich's hideout in this forest is the first stage of the most efficient training he knows. She begins to cast her magic in various directions, only for it to be deflected by another spell. Still, her mana continues to advance, but it's blocked by several enchantment circles. The girl comments that there are many deception spells, recognizing that the book's former student is truly impressive. Our boy just smiles confidently, apparently proud. Barrier spells, illusions, and magical distortions, all of these are obstacles that Riley must overcome. The Lich then whispers that the golden-eyed girl seems quite confident. However, it took even an advanced mage half a year to find his hideout, so it will be impossible for her, an apprentice. But the girl simply flashes a triumphant smile, knowing she will succeed. Our boy is also confident, as he's not surprised she's so proud. Riley's affinity with mana is on the level of a true prodigy of the highest caliber. Now, our dear blonde is face to face with the tall monster that is the Lich, declaring that she has found him. Desperate, he asks how it was possible so quickly, starting to panic and telling himself to calm down. He admits he was just trying to look cool after so long, but his voice failed from the shock, confusing the young girl. The two wait calmly while the skeleton takes his time to stabilize. Quickly approaching our protagonist, he asks how it was that the girl found him so quickly, considering the previous record holder took more than 4 months. But Riley broke through the barrier in less than 10 minutes by tracking the magic that interfered with the location in reverse. This is a method only possible with incredibly high magical prowess, leading the Lich to question if the blonde really managed to track him with such efficiency. In a comical tone, the girl confirms that she did, forcing the skeleton to call her a monster. Soon, they all conclude their previous conversation and enter the hideout while our book observes the mystical creature. Even a Cerberus resides in this sinister place, and our protagonist comments that his former student's strange habits haven't changed. The book questions if this place can even be called a hideout, to which the dark mage replies that his room is just ahead. Shortly after, they sit at a table and the skeleton sips a cup of tea. The girl seems uncomfortable with this, drawing the attention of our dear book. He quickly orders his former student to hide his aura, as it's making her companion uncomfortable. In a sweet tone, the skeleton apologizes, saying he hasn't seen anyone in a long time and isn't well adjusted. Our protagonist reflects that his disciple betrayed the laws of the celestial realm and ended up cursed by the gods. As a necromancer, he inevitably carries an aura of dark magic. Thus, he became a creature that defies death, known as a Lich. Our protagonist asks if she understands why he created a new disciple instead of sticking with an undead one, to which the girl quickly nods. After all, the basis of a Lich is dark magic, which is forbidden in the Empire. Its practitioners are devotees of evil gods, necromancers, even mages, dark arts, even thieves' guilds that obtain illegal materials for such practices and become enemies of the Empire. The main point is that there's a specialized organization called the Inquisition, tasked with punishing those associated with evil. Our protagonist asks how his colleague is doing, and he replies that nothing has changed since he became a Lich, having been there for at least 2,000 years. He mentions that he spends most of his time researching dark magic and dealing with adventurers who discovered his hideout about 5 years ago. Surprised, our protagonist asks if they actually managed to invade, to which the Lich humorously confirms. He adds that he doesn't know how they found the place, assuming it was by luck, as they mistook it for a dungeon because of the aura. The adventurers attacked as soon as they saw him, leaving him with no choice but to defend himself. Our protagonist then points out that there's liquid leaking from his bones. The bound book asks what happened to those people, and the skeleton admits he turned them into his servants. He gestures and says that they are right over there. At that moment, the skeleton introduces his servant, Jeremy, who is also human. However, as soon as they see him, they both freeze in shock and realize something extremely important. Our protagonist shouts in fury, saying that Jeremy is a Death Knight, and that he thought the person they killed was just an ordinary adventurer. The young book asks how a common adventurer could become a Death Knight, to which Riley quickly identifies the person. She reveals that the sword at Jeremy's waist, with a golden lion on the hilt, belongs to the leader of the Inquisition. She recalls hearing that the leader disappeared during a mission 5 years ago, and that they are still searching for his body, hoping to find him alive. Our protagonist becomes even more enraged with his former student, while the skeleton claims he didn't know, since he only fought against the adventurers who invaded his hideout. The protagonist reflects that Liches usually have their minds slightly affected by dark magic. He used to visit the Lich to check on his mental state and make adjustments, but for the past 300 years, those checkups have become lax, leading him to sigh deeply, realizing that he will have to make adjustments again. The skeleton clears his non-existent throat, pointing out that the disciple is still an apprentice, and yet she managed to make it all the way here. He asks if there's a specific reason. Our protagonist states that this girl is capable of handling his personal training, to which the skeleton is in complete agreement. The book asks if the Lich remembers the last disciple he brought, Martha Forelli, and the undead being quickly recalls her. He learns that Martha is connected to those scoundrels. The skeleton deduces that there's an imposter posing as Martha's disciple, and questions if the master really plans to enter the Arraigns magic tower to seek revenge. Our protagonist confirms it with a slightly heavy tone. The dark mage questions the need to seek revenge by entering the Arraigns magic tower. He suggests that it would be simpler to go to another magic tower and maintain control, as places like the 5 Great Towers are overshadowed by. Previously, our protagonist considers that to be undoubtedly the most direct and constructive approach, however. Blushing slightly, he admits that destroying them slowly from the inside and doing it personally is much more fun. The skeleton trembles and comments that this reason is quite peculiar, to which the protagonist replies that his former student is the last person who should be judging. Shortly after, the hooded monster asks Riley if she is willing to follow her master's opinion despite the danger. With a comforting smile, she replies that she finds this method exciting and fun, which leads the Lich to comment that she's a weirdo too. Time skips forward slightly, showing Riley marveling at a particular place. The skeleton explains that the flow of magic there is unusual, and that he spent a lot of time creating that space alongside his master. The young book reflects that 6 months until the selection exam is very little time for an apprentice to advance to an advanced mage. Even a genius like Riley will face extreme difficulty with this, but if they had 4 times that amount of time, they could achieve it in 2 years. Riley acknowledges that this space is truly incredible, as time seems to flow differently. Both the master and the former student claim that creating this place was quite a challenge. Now the young woman has 2 distinct advantages over other mages. The first is her exceptional physical abilities from her past as a thief, and the second is her supernatural and superior affinity with mana. From now on, they will focus solely on these 2 and concentrate on one type of magic, revealing that the plan is for her to learn Dispel magic, which the girl quickly recognizes. Then, it's explained that Dispel magic is a type of counterspell that undoes other spells. This means it can make even fireballs in the sky disappear all at once, like a magic trick. Then, our tattooed guy asks if the blonde girl knows why she is being trained in this, to which he responds affirmatively. She explains that the book wants her to use the spell to prevent opponents from using magic during the selection exam. After that, she should take advantage of her physical abilities for close quarters combat, to which the young man confirms that this is exactly the plan. The book simply says that she must ensure that her opponents cannot use magic, regardless of the method, which the skeleton considers dishonest. However, the bound boy reveals that this is the only way to deal with mages during the exam, leaving the training in the hands of the Lich. The girl, confused, asks them to wait a moment, as she didn't quite understand the last part, but the skeleton is already emanating its magic, which Riley tries to stop. She says she doesn't know how to use Dispel magic, revealing that it's usually taught in the 3rd year, which she hasn't even started. Quickly, the skeleton casts a spell, saying that's even better. He then reveals that someone can improve quickly after just a few tries, confusing the blonde girl even more. After a while, our protagonist reflects silently beside him. His former student watches in an enveloping silence. The boy then reveals that skills usually improve when one gets hit more, questioning why the young woman doesn't want to be hit. He wonders why she isn't progressing, and the Lich steps in to explain it. Then we revisit a scene from their battle in which the skeleton cast a spell at the girl. She remains silent, bracing herself for the spell, strategically positioning her leg. She quickly dodged the attack that could have easily taken her down, and the skeleton explained that was the reason. Our protagonist wonders if there's something wrong with his teaching method. It has been 3 days since he met his partner, and although it hasn't been long, he already knows her personality quite well. She has an extremely strong sense of pride and might be reluctant to reveal her weaknesses, as she has a strong aversion to failure. For members of the Thieves Guild, failing a mission is not an option, and he wonders if the psychological pressure built up since her childhood still affects her. Our boy keeps his gaze on his partner and assumes that might be the reason. Or perhaps it's due to the fear of failure, which leaves her with no choice but to flee uncontrollably. But the girl quickly shatters that assumption, saying it's not like that at all. Confused, she reveals that she only ran because she was afraid of getting hurt, which the skeleton also realizes might be the case. The boy then, with a carefree and comical smile, tells her to put those thoughts aside. Quickly, the book realizes that what she doesn't know is the principle of the method. It is then explained that there are 3 methods detecting the opponent's channeling, diving into the spell's source, and immersing oneself in the magical form. He realizes that Riley doesn't know every detailed step for dispelling, but he has good news for her. In his human form, the book tells her to think calmly, as he has already taught her what's necessary. Afterwards, the skeleton summons his magic, and Grin concludes that she was distressed by the possibility of getting hurt, but now Riley can think more clearly. The girl then brings her fingers close to the spell orb, touching it lightly. Still doubtful, the blonde asks if she knows everything she needs to know, to which our protagonist responds affirmatively. Quickly, the young woman explains that all she's been taught is tracking combined with telepathy, and asks if she should apply both simultaneously. Our boy starts to explain, but she interrupts him, saying she understands now and has no more questions. Speaking telepathically to the tattooed boy, she tells him she'll find another way, remembering our boy's phrase about not following rules set by mediocre people, as she is a far superior entity to them. Riley steps forward once more, extends her hand, declaring she will try to forge her own path, just as she did when she was taught by the grimoire. Closing her eyes, she recognizes that it's a labyrinth-shaped mana circuit. She opens her eyes inside the world of magic, quickly using tracking to see the entire map of that complex spell. In her mind, she recalls having navigated labyrinths twice before, the underground passage of Artemis, and the complicated path to the Lich's hideout. The book acknowledges this, and instructs that she must decipher the magic formulas one by one. She must do it discreetly to avoid being detected, as others could undo the spell if they notice. This is essentially telepathy, used as a secret communication tool to achieve the result. Soon the spell in the skeleton's hand shatters into thousands of magical fragments. With a confident smile, our protagonist congratulates her on her success. Trembling, she asks how many hours have passed, and he replies that it has been 4 hours. Sighing in relief, she assumes only 1 hour has passed in the real world, but the book corrects her, explaining that it's the opposite. 4 hours passed in the outside world, while she battled this low-energy sphere for 16 hours. She exhales deeply, as her legs begin to weaken at the realization that time is flowing faster than expected. Riley accepts this fact, and the book states that this is precisely how things will work. Quickly, Riley reassures him, saying she's getting the hang of it and will move faster next time. Our guy smiles and agrees that this situation is truly promising. We are told that time passed relentlessly, the seasons changing one after another at an incredible speed. Outside, people were already preparing for the autumn season. Riley continued to train with the Death Knight to further improve her physical strength. Finally, September arrived with autumn, when the sun sets earlier. This is the time of year when the magical world pays closer attention. It's the time when the selection exam season takes place. Then, we see Riley dismantling another spell. This time, even the skeleton is impressed. With a confident smile, Riley watches as the fragments of magic dissolve before her. Our protagonist announces that it was a flawless dissipation, and thus, her 6 months of training that felt like 2 years have come to an end. With a slightly confident tone, he declares that at this rate she could even face a mid-level mage without a problem, leaving her surprised. They decide to call it a day, and the skeleton thanks her for her hard work, mentioning that he'll ask Jeremy to prepare a delicious dinner. The master praises his former student, who humbly says it was nothing, until a piece of paper falls from his cloak. Our guy comments that with a little more refinement of her offensive magic, Riley will become a practically perfect mid-level mage. But suddenly, Riley picks up the paper, and the young book asks what it is. It's revealed to be a world domination plan, whose first step is to create a Death Knight and synthesize a chimera capable of using magic. Both of them are left shocked by the contents of the paper, and silence fills the room. They turn to their companion, who remains silent. Comically, the master asks if his former student really planned to conquer the world while he was away, assuming the Lich intends to ruin the continent. The skeleton shouts that he was indeed trying to do so, but that he only wanted to take a small city in the Far East and make it his kingdom. Our protagonist sighs and facepalms in disbelief at what he's hearing. The Lich admits that was supposed to be his ambition, but the book fears he might cause trouble soon if not properly supervised. The mage scratches his head comically, which prompts the bound book to ask him why. Reacts like that, trying to look innocent. The skeleton claims it hasn't caused any trouble, provoking an exasperated shout from our protagonist. At the moment the Lich's plan for world domination was discovered, an event occurred in the northern region of the Empire. There, a girl dressed in black was walking through the snow. In the distance, some figures can be seen. This reveals that a second conspiracy is unfolding at the same time. The location is a road leading to the city of mages known as Wilhelm. The minions gather in one place, hiding their faces. One of them informs his boss that it is that person after all. The attire by itself alone reveals she is someone very wealthy at a glance. With a cunning smile, the man comments that her walk is pathetic and shows no signs of caution, leaving her defenseless. Then, he pulls out a bow and his companions draw their weapons, commenting that she should be more careful when walking alone. They quickly shoot an arrow, shouting for her to die with that attack, and it seems to work, as the arrow hits her directly in the back. She falls to the ground, her crimson blood staining the white snow. The minions praise their boss, saying it was a perfect shot, while on the body they discover several jewels and wonder how valuable they must be, noting that such treasures are not found in most of dungeons. The leader considers it an incredible stroke of luck, until one of his companions calls him annoyed. He starts to complain, but is interrupted when the man, visibly scared, insists that he look. To everyone's surprise, the girl they just killed is now standing in front of them, with a look as dangerous as one can imagine. The hooded man, full of doubt, asks what the hell she could be. Everyone starts to shout that the treasure, gold, and the body have disappeared, catching the leader's attention. Quickly, he realizes that the person in front of them is not an ordinary girl, but a mage. Scared, he orders everyone to take their swords and weapons to prepare for a fight. He insists they still have a chance, since they outnumber her and can win, but the young woman only shows a sadistic and malevolent smile at their display. Seemingly pathetic, the gray-haired man scoffs at her, saying she's nothing more than a spoiled and elegant little girl, but he is abruptly interrupted. An instant later, he is struck by a strange weapon directly on the arms, severing them on the spot. He begins to groan and grit his teeth in pain. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream escapes his mouth upon seeing his hands twitching on the ground. The girl places her hand under the man's chin as he screams. With a macabre smile, she says that if you mess with a mage, you will pay a very high price. Sometime later, an old man arrives at the scene. He observes the area and quickly deduces that this is the work of a mage who fought against bandits. He estimates that the event occurred about 5 hours ago and comments that this was not a murder, but a one-sided massacre. The carriage driver asks what they should do, and the old man replies that they should ignore it and report it to the guards in the nearest city. Returning to the carriage, he assumes that as long as they stay there they won't have any problems, with which the other agrees. Inside the carriage, a familiar figure becomes visible. The old man looks ahead and recognizes the figure. It's Riley carrying our protagonist. The old man calls out to her and asks why she is visiting Wilhelm. She responds that she is there to take the entrance exam for the 5 great magical towers, leaving the old man visibly distressed. He laments that this is practically throwing her life away, especially after witnessing the previous massacre, as the selection exams attract all sorts of mages. Among them are lunatics who seize the opportunity to kill, and she should at least have the skill to protect herself. He acknowledges that reaching the lower ranks at her young age is commendable, but insists that she needs more training before attempting the exam. But the girl dryly thanks him for the advice, and then states with firmness that she has already made her decision. With an even grimmer tone, the old man falls silent, closing his eyes and thinking that another promising candidate will probably meet a premature end this year. He lets out a deep sigh filled with pity for the blonde girl. Our protagonist wonders why this old man is meddling, and Riley is also unsure. After a while, they finally arrive, and Riley can only think about how fascinating this place is, since it's her first time seeing such an advanced city. It is explained that this place is cold and snows all year round, and we can see modern houses adorned with flags hanging from the lampposts. Above them, there are also floating ships gliding through the sky. Suddenly, a commotion erupts as the townspeople ask what is happening. It is soon explained that it was Roy, the next-door neighbor, who failed in one of his experiments. Our protagonist reflects that the appearance has changed, but the atmosphere is still the same. He then asks Riley if she has figured out the way. The young woman admits she has no idea, and our young book finds it frustrating, since the city has changed so much that he doesn't recognize the way either. Meanwhile, from one of the alleys, someone watches the girl, while our protagonist reveals that the administration building for the exams isn't on the map. Riley begins to emanate her mana to try and find the way. A ray of energy travels through all possible routes in the bright city. It reveals 10 potential locations, all of which are relatively clean buildings with restricted public access. Our young book reflects that they should have followed the old man earlier, a sentiment with which Riley agrees, realizing they should have just endured his complaints. Our protagonist then notes how much has changed in the last 300 years, but fails to notice that they have caught someone's attention. A man approaches cautiously, but in a friendly manner, commenting that Riley seems new to the area. The book observes him, noticing his bulky robe, a common style in Wilhelm. More importantly, it notices a faint and vague energy surrounding the man, identifying him as a novice mage. The man explains that using magic to find the way is pointless, since the residual magical energy from experiments and research directly interferes with spells. The girl asks if there's another way to find the path, to which the man supposes he could look into it. With a charming and seemingly innocent smile, he suggests that helping a friendly local might be an excellent option. Riley wonders what they should do, and our protagonist reveals that it's completely up to her to decide. The blonde girl then declares that they will be under his care, which leads the man to ask where they want to go. She replies that they are heading to the administration office for the selection exam. The man guides them, saying he understands, and asks if she is going to take the exam. She confirms that she is. After much talking, Ray simply says he has understood everything the man has said as they walk, and the man continues talking unnecessarily. The girl politely interrupts him, asking how long it will take. With a confident smile, he replies that they are heading to the administration office for the selection exam, which is about 15 minutes away. But the girl clarifies that's not what she's asking, then reveals a bit about the true identity of the man before her. She states that what she wants to know is about the spell he has been casting on her for a while now. The man's expression changes to one of cold seriousness, like that of a killer. In a heavy tone, he asks when she started to notice. The girl reveals she knew from the very beginning, and we are shown that her lips emit a faint pink glow. She explains that the man always emphasized certain parts of his sentences. She deduced he was using a peculiar intonation to infuse his words with magic, a technique commonly known as enchantment. She asks if that isn't true, to which the man can only smile, finding her observation impressive. Riley knows that this man was using a peculiar intonation to disguise an enchantment and cast a spell on her. She laughs openly at him, with tears in her eyes. He asks why she followed him, even knowing his true intentions toward her. We learn that the spell being cast was one of paralysis. This is a relatively simple spell to learn, as it completely immobilizes a person. The victims are usually sold as test subjects to dark mages or to the illegal slave market. This is quite common in this city, and the victims are usually young people like Riley. However, there is a secret reason why they followed this man. Riley reveals that, even though he is an adult, he won't be able to harm her in the slightest. Irritated, the man grits his teeth, letting out a slight laugh. He quickly realizes that the girl has become arrogant after reaching the basic level of lower-level painful, saying that among lower-level mages, the difference in skill can be as vast as the gap between heaven and earth. Our protagonist, extremely excited, comments that Riley is like the heavens, while he is the earth, leaving the girl speechless. However, she quickly ignores him, which irritates him slightly, and asks him how many targets he's had so far. He responds with a total of 13, in a slightly proud tone. He claims that they all fall victim to his laugh, especially his divine face, assuming himself to be quite attractive. The two remain silent, while the man in front of them reveals that some people say that he has a face that could easily make any woman cry. Our protagonist, still raising his middle fingers, listens to Riley agree, saying the man is right, as they must be lamenting every night for having seen him. In that sense, the man must be quite skilled at making women cry, which completely enrages him. The man begins to emanate flames while hurling insults at our young protagonist, calling her a witch. Soon, a scorching fireball appears in his hand, transforming into a spear with a tip that is incandescent and radiant. This is an attribute awakening spell, specifically fire, which he controls. Our protagonist thinks that, although this person is a low-level novice, his control is impressive. The man then uses the spear to charge at the girl. Our dear protagonist sees this as a perfect opportunity for some hands-on experience. The older man launches his attack against the young woman. She watches the spell with an enviable calm, maintaining her usual composure, her aura enveloping the approaching flames, activating accelerated thought, which allows her to concentrate better. It is revealed that during her training with the Lich, she developed a particular skill, a dynamic vision far superior to that of a human, and when someone like Riley channels magic into her brain, her thought speed increases exponentially. We see the spear just inches from her eye, but suddenly, several enchantment circles appear around the fatal attack. She is already decoding the entire code of the complex spell. Quickly, she raises her hand, emanating a bluish aura with purple hues, completely dispelling the spear that was heading for her. The man is completely astonished, as he has never seen such skill in someone so young. The man gets scared after Riley completely dispels his power in her direction. He asks what kind of trick that was, and the girl pretends not to understand, as she prepares to cast another spell. The young woman wonders if this is not precisely the difference between heaven and earth that was mentioned before. Grimoire observes and concludes that his friend's attack is unique, as it has no rotation or tricks, being simply a mass of magical energy. Quickly, Riley fires her great blue power toward the man. The man is completely shocked and sweating profusely, especially since the girl is unimaginably fast. The ball of blue power directly hits the girl's opponent. True Magic Missile is the name of that spell. Upon taking the direct hit, the man is seriously injured. Riley declares that thanks to her opponent, she learned a valuable lesson. She explains that being skilled with magic does not always solve everything and that, in combat, the results can vary depending on characteristics and talents. The girl and her friend watch the opponent lying on the ground and realize he is dead. Grimoire is completely in shock at the scene, asking his friend if she really killed the man, and clarifies that he is not saying it to make a scene. The young man concludes that he also helped kill the opponent. Desperate, the boy kneels and begs for the man to be resurrected, while his friend simply watches him by his side. He claims that the duo went to the place just to gain practical experience, and that it is not fair for someone to die for that. Despite the desperate pleas, the man did not come back to life. Days pass, and one morning dawns with snow. Riley and Grimorio are in front of a building that is presented as the administration office. It is explained that the girl used her tracking ability to check the 10 presumed locations of the office. Still, nobody knew where the administration office was. Although the girl asked everyone, after checking all the buildings, the young woman finally managed to find what she was looking for. Grimorio notices a sign that identifies the building and asks how his friend had not noticed it, believing that someone is intentionally hiding the location. The boy asks if his friend remembers the locations of all the buildings visited. Riley says yes, that she marked them all on the map. Upon observing the pattern formed by all the marked buildings, the girl realizes that they formed an inverted pentagram and a magic circle. Grimorio calls the people from the administration office bastards. The young man explains that they used the entire city of Wilhelm as a magic circle and placed special buildings in each location. The explanation reveals that they used concealment, magic barriers, invisibility, and an illusion to confuse anyone who went to the place. The boy wonders why they would do that, and as his friend studies the map, they decide to enter the building to discover the motives behind everything. Upon entering the building, the duo encounters a red-haired woman sitting at a desk. She quickly notices their presence and spins her chair in their direction. The woman congratulates the youngsters for passing the first phase of the selection exam. It is explained that the symbol on the girl's hand, shaped like a snowflake, proves she is a candidate for the selection exam. Riley looks at her hand in confusion, while the red-haired woman explains that using this symbol will allow them to use the facilities of Wilhelm while they prepare to leave. The girl says that she and her friend passed the first test by chance, and he replies that the task was tedious, but not difficult. The girl possesses great tracking skills, so the test of visiting the 10 buildings was completed quickly. It is explained that the buildings were not on the map, which made the task more difficult. Additionally, there were 10 presumed locations for administrative offices. All these aspects were part of a single exam. The red-haired woman mentioned that the administration office only appears after finding the other 9 spots. Grimorio concludes that one would have to overcome several obstacles, track all the locations, and only then find the final office. The boy also thinks that this search must be hell for other mages, except for Riley, who has a knack for finding places. Before leaving the room, the administration woman calls out to the girl again. She warns her to avoid any kind of conflict with other applicants before the next exam. Confused, the protagonist does not understand what the woman was referring to. The young woman asks what that was about, and her friend says it is nothing. He explains that sometimes there are some jerks who provoke fights to gauge the level of other applicants before the exam. Riley understands that she has nothing to do with that, and her friend says that some people might ignore the warning and try to start a fight. Suddenly, the young woman stops and becomes very tense. She addresses Grimorio, and in fact, he agrees. The protagonist begins to feeling a strong killing intent. With a strange sensation, the young woman realizes it's a familiar mana that she felt when passing the corpses on the cart's path. The boy states that whoever is emitting that intent again is the person responsible for the corpses. He suggests tracking the killing intent, and the girl concentrates. Riley uses the tracking application, and a blue vision appears. The girl abandons the vision and tries to see the world solely through mana. She sees several people with mana surrounding her, and among the crowd she notices someone who stands out dressed in a red shirt. The protagonist realizes that this person is the one responsible for the killing intent, yet the person in the red shirt is also watching Riley. She asks what she should do, and her friend asks her if she feels capable of defeating the opponent. He says it's scary, and asks the young woman to maintain a defensive stance as much as possible. Something catches the girl's attention and she notices red rays approaching. The young woman hesitates between dispelling them or crouching to dodge them. She realizes the spell is too fast, and that before she can counter or dodge it, her brain will be pierced. In that case, she decides to cast a double spell, which means sacrificing some flesh to save the bone. Riley decides to raise a barrier on the side the attack is coming from, aiming to break it quickly and dodge through an opening. Meanwhile, the girl prepares a magic missile to counterattack. Although she thinks very quickly, by the time the young woman realizes it, the opponent's spell is already too close to her, leaving no room to escape. At that moment, The person in the red shirt gets even closer. Desperate, the girl realizes she can't stop the opponent's spell, yet she launches her magic missile and quickly manages to block the red ray that was coming towards her. A pool of blood appears on the ground. The grimoire falls and is also completely covered in blood. The person in the red shirt smiles. Riley looks at her hand and seems confused about what is happening. She remains still among the crowd, wondering what just occurred. The young woman coughs and still hasn't understood the recent events. Her opponent in the red shirt stands before her and explains that the recent battle only occurred inside her mind. It's explained that this is called a mental battle, creating a simulation manifested in a state of extreme concentration. The explanation continues, stating that it works by detecting the opponent, sensing the killing intent, and thinking about how to react. Riley concludes that everything she experienced was just an illusion, and the person in red remains standing in her direction. When she removes her hood, it's revealed that this person is a girl who asks the protagonist if she just saw her own death. An inverted pentagram is shown on the new girl's hand. Grimoire quickly realizes that she is a candidate for the selection exam and that she ignored the warning to avoid conflicts. The macabre scene Riley experienced could only have been the work of a deranged killer. The boy warns his friend to be careful with the new girl, saying that the young woman seems like a cruel psychopath. Grimoire also states that no person in their right mind would use magic as a weapon for murder. Later, the girl in the red shirt appears eating at a table and asks if the food isn't tasty. Riley is in her presence and agrees that it's delicious. It's explained that they are in the best restaurant in Wilhelm. While the protagonist enjoys the food and her friend looks very uncomfortable. The protagonist is surprised to hear that the opponent will pay for everything, and she explains that. The blonde girl's eyes sparkle as she tells Grimoire she likes the new girl, but he continues to warn her not to get too close. The young woman says that people who offer food are never bad and continues to enjoy the meal. Still eating, Riley says she only ate something bad in the Lich's cave, and Grimoire says that saddens him, since he worked hard to cook for the girl. Lich also balanced all the nutrients and used rare ingredients to prepare the food in the cave. Still, the girl seems dissatisfied and asks what the point is, given that she doesn't have a good sense of taste for food. Grimoire ends the discussion and says there is something more important at that moment. The girl dressed in red introduces herself as Rebecca Duncan and says they can call her Becky. She claims it's a pleasure to meet Riley. It's explained that she could be a crazy assassin, which is the real problem on a full stomach. The protagonist thanks her for the meal, and Becky says there's no need to thank her. The story of Rebecca is revealed, showing that at only 27 years old, she has already become an intermediate mage, which is why she came to Wilhelm to take the selection exam. Rebecca says there's no need to feel grateful for the food. She explains that everything there is free, bursting into loud laughter. Riley is confused and doesn't understand. The protagonist recalls her conversation with the administrator. Becky explains that by showing the emblem on her hand, some facilities are free. The restaurant is one of them, and the girl in red calls Riley naive. The girl shows a frustrated expression, and the other one says it wasn't her intention to deceive her. Grimoire gets irritated because his friend didn't understand the situation. Riley has a blank expression, which means she is quite upset. Rebecca asks if the girl has a place to stay, and Riley says she was planning to go to the next place on her list. Angrily, Becky says that's not right and that the facilities have a big difference in quality, asking to see the map and the list. She points to a spot on the map and says that one is fine. The Heavenly Whale Inn seems to be the best place to stay. The girl in red says she's staying there and praises it for being secluded, quiet, and having a very kind owner. Rebecca keeps talking about the place, while Riley already seems tired of the conversation. Becky hands the map back to the girl, now scribbled all over and marked with red ink. The protagonist asks if the new girl won't be joining them, and Becky replies that she'll be staying at someone else's house for a while. As the young woman looks at her scribbled map, the other girl watches her. She asks if Riley also wants to stay at that house with her, and the young woman says no. The girl says she was just asking, while Grimoire seems confused. He claims to have vast experience spanning thousands of years. For that reason, he says that the Becky's statement was sincere. Still, the blonde young woman doesn't understand why the other girl is so interested in her. Her friend says he doesn't know, and that he can't understand the thoughts of a lunatic, adding that if he had to guess, he thinks she's curious about how Riley, a rookie, passed the first phase of the exam. The protagonist says her friend speaks quite well for someone who claimed not to know, and he states it was just a guess. She continues, saying there's a saying that birds of a feather flock together. Grimorio asks if the young lady is calling him crazy. As they talk, Becky approaches and tells Riley she should get some rest, saying she'll see her in the next exam. The boy doesn't like what he sees, explaining that anyone who smiles like that is a maniac. Rebecca had shown murderous intent in their first encounter, and brutally killed bandits. The boy asks Riley to say something to the girl before they part ways. The protagonist says goodbye to the girl in red, and Becky says that next time she hopes they can fight face to face without being intimidated. Riley replies for her not to use illusion magic, to scare her. Confused, the girl in red asks what illusion magic would be. The story explains the virtual battle that took place during their first encounter. Riley faced death in that fight, but she managed to return to the real world. Becky said the phenomenon that occurred was a mental battle. However, this is a real concept, not a phenomenon. The protagonist wonders if everything she experienced during their first encounter was an illusion spell cast by her opponent. Rebecca is stunned by the young woman's intelligence and says that only a high-level mage level would have noticed it. Grimorio says that since ancient times there has only been one way to detect illusion, magic, or observing, as Riley calls Becky an incompetent mage. She continues, saying that if it had been a battle inside her mental space, she would have survived. But since that was impossible, it could only have been an illusion. The girl in red, he becomes enraged. It's explained that all mages possess a strong sense of pride and would not remain silent if they were called incompetent. Becky, still enraged, asks what her opponent just said. She asks again if Riley would have won under normal circumstances, and the girl calmly replies yes, trying to maintain her composure. Becky is left speechless as she thinks about what to say. Then suddenly, the mage bursts into loud laughter, mocking the fact that the protagonist said she would win. The woman calls the girl a child and claims that she is a mage who has almost reached the advanced level, adding that's a lot compared to a rookie who has barely reached the apprentice level, stating there is an abysmal difference between them. Becky asserts that the amount of magical power, the precision of control, the strength of the mana core, even the casting speed, are completely different between them. Grimorio intervenes, saying that difference cannot be easily overcome, regardless of skill, and that this is an established fact. The young man is about to conclude, but he is interrupted by Riley, who says that someone told her the same thing before, and that now that person lies in an alley in Wilhelm. She approaches Rebecca and says she killed someone with a hole in their chest. The woman in red watches the girl, as it's explained that the protagonist knows how to fight and defeat stronger opponents. The duel with the Lich also recalled the battle against the female chimera in the hideout, and finally the fight with the man in the alley. Becky keeps laughing at the situation and says she would love to attack Riley right then and there, and the girl says she is ready for anything. Rebecca tells the young woman to shut up and states that she knows her intentions, but that she does not want to be disqualified for ignoring the administrator's warning. The protagonist says that is a lie, and that Rebecca is backing down because she knows she would lose. Wanting to end the situation, the woman in red says that it was all fun and that she has run into all sorts of crazies before. She says goodbye to Riley and tells the girl to take care of herself until the exam. As she leaves, Becky continues to mock her, saying she had a lot of fun during the day. The blonde-haired girl realizes that it was in fact a clone. Grimoire agrees, saying that the real body must be on the other side of Wilhelm. It is explained that a strange mana flow cannot exist in ordinary living beings, and that if Riley were not so sensitive, it would have been impossible to notice it. The protagonist says that she understands now, and her friend asks what she means. She explains that she understands why Becky was interested in her. Riley states that it was simply out of curiosity, and that Rebecca must have been wondering when she would realize it was a clone. The young woman says that as Rebecca waits to be discovered, the mana flow becomes stronger for that reason. Grimoire asks why the opponent would do such a thing, and Riley says it is for fun. She claims it is about enjoying the thrill of almost being discovered, and that this is very entertaining. Her friend states that it is a lunatic's mentality, and for that reason, quite admirable. A figure appears reading some papers under the light of a candle. The papers he is observing are the profiles of those competing in the exam, and the person notices that there is an unusual number of interesting candidates. He mentions having seen the list up to the second son of the Stingwatt family, and comments on how nostalgic it feels. A woman from the administration appears in a magic orb and orders the man to leave his memories behind and move on to the next page. Curious, the man decides to take a look, believing that the best is yet to come. Quickly scanning the next profile, the man comes across the file of Riley, noticing that she comes from the Renel Mises Academy. It is explained that she is a new student eager to take the exam as soon as possible, something typical of those from Renel Mises. The administrator asks if the man knows how long it took the protagonist to pass the first test. Arrogantly, he claims that the young woman probably did not pass it and that she surely wandered around Wilhelm for almost 3 months. Debunking his assumption, the red-haired woman explains the opposite. She reveals that the young woman arrived in Wilhelm in the early afternoon and took less than a half a day to find the administration office, leaving the man thoughtful. Suddenly, the man picks up Duncan's file and says that the previous record was his, taking 4 hours to arrive, even with the help of 20 clones. The average time for successful candidates to complete the first test is about 1 week. Even Garen Edward von The, an expert-level student, took a full day to complete the exam. Reflexively, the man with glasses concludes that Riley holds the record for reaching the administration building the fastest. The female administrator confirms this, commenting that there will be many interesting things to see this year. With 1 week left until the second selection test, the students are instructed to rest before the upcoming combat test. Riley agrees to rest, while her friend states they've been running non-stop until now. With the test approaching, Riley began to adopt a more relaxed lifestyle. She started waking up late in the morning and having breakfast, taking a nap before lunch, and eating dinner in a more leisurely manner. 3 days passed, and the girl says she's bored. Riley is tired of resting, so Grimoire suggests they go for a walk, and the girl agrees. The protagonist gets ready to go out, and her friend comments that she looks very beautiful. She says she bought expensive clothes but still has money left, while her friend mentions he's still wearing what he received from Renelle Misses. Something catches the young woman's attention. It's the central library of Arcadia, and the young man explains that it's a building that has existed for hundreds of years. The boy continues, saying it's probably the second largest after the one in Emos, and the place with the largest number of stored magic books. Delighted, Riley asks if she could go inside, while her friend remains unconvinced. Trying to persuade him, the girl says that there's nothing else to do, and that she can access the library as a selection candidate. Exploring Arcadia would be a highly beneficial experience due to the high level of rare books. Still, her friend remains unconvinced. The boy says he was trapped in that place for 300 years, along with countless cursed books. Several books are shown. Riley suggests her friend go in, as he can't avoid the library forever. The boy is in agreement, acknowledging that in the land they live in, books are necessary to acquire knowledge. He realizes that he can't avoid the library forever, and needs to overcome this trauma. Convinced, the boy closes his eyes and decides to enter the place. Grimoire states that if it doesn't work out, he'll leave forever. The two of them walk toward the building, and something catches the girl's eye. She is fascinated by the beauty of the place, but her friend comments that the site doesn't have the feel of being crammed with books and that the ceiling is a cheap imitation of Hot, while the girl asks what Hot is. Riley says she received a platinum access card, and Grimoire explains that it's the highest rank and allows them to go anywhere. Hearing this, the girl is euphoric and says they already have a destination in mind. The duo heads to the restricted area with forbidden books. The boy says that this section contains the books that really matter. He suggests she take a lamp, as the place isn't very well lit. The girl notices a spot with more light. The two decide to head to that place, then realize that someone is already sitting there reading a book in that part of the library. At that moment, the duo approaches, and upon noticing their presence, the man reading the book turns around and faces them. He asks how they got to this place, and Riley shows the mark on her hand, leaving the man confused. The man states that it's impressive, the girl passed the first test, even. With a terrible spell, the grimoire meets the man, remembering the moment the protagonist met the old man, when she arrived for the exam. At that moment, the man claimed it would be suicide for the young woman due to the massacre that happened before. The girl shows the emblem on her hand. The old man suggests that the young woman surrender, and she asks how, and the man states that the exam will be more brutal than she imagines. Continuing his explanation, the man says that only a mage with decades of real combat experience could pass. Riley doesn't answer, and a heavy silence fills the room. After a few seconds of silence, the young woman thanks him for his concern, but states that she has already made her decision. The old man says she is reckless and foolish, while the protagonist claims she is brave. Still, in the conversation, the man says it's not bravery, but irresponsibility on Riley's part. Determined, the girl asks to personally show her powers to the old man, and she casts a few spells toward him. He declares that there will be a duel. The white-bearded old man states that if the girl wants to take the exam, she needs something. He reveals that she must fight a duel with him, and the yellow-eyed girl wonders why. And the old man explains that it won't be a normal duel. In this duel, the man will not attack, which confuses the girl. She will have 3 opportunities to attack the old man, if the man takes even a single step during the test. Then the young woman will win. So he declares that he will not interfere with the young woman anymore, and that if she manages to land a valid hit, she will surely survive. The protagonist's brown-haired friend thinks that the white-bearded man is not entirely wrong. He looks at the old man seriously. There are fewer than 50 people like him on the continent. He is an expert mage, of a high level among the exam participants. He is clearly the strongest, and if the protagonist manages to land a valid hit, she will prove her skills. The yellow-eyed girl wants to know what happens if the protagonist fails to land a valid hit, and the mage explains that in that case, she will not take the test. This leaves the young woman confused, and the old man says that in such a case he will have to attack her for real. Surprised, the brown-haired boy reminds him that he just said he wouldn't attack. The old man reveals that he won't kill her. He will just break her legs so she can't take the exam. The two friends conclude that this person is not normal. Calmly, the mage asks why the protagonist has such a grim expression, and she replies that it's because her pride is hurt. Ironically, the old man asks if she wants to fight on equal terms and, surprisingly, the young woman says yes. The man sighs at the foolishness he just heard. Suddenly, he remembers something. Speaking to the yellow-eyed girl, he asks her to find the book in his bag. Obeying, the girl holds a green-covered book titled 100 Great Figures Who Shaped the Modern Empire. The mage takes the book from her hand, and the protagonist's friend asks why the old man is doing this. Flipping through the pages, he replies that it is a very good book that doesn't distort history. Then he hands the book to the protagonist and orders her to read it. Her friend asks why he is recommending that book, and he suggests they look at page 67. Garen Edward Bond de Garencieb was the commander of the magic unit on the Western Front, and is known for single-handedly containing hundreds of demons. This event became known as the Battle of the Alpar Mountains, and the Emperor praised Garen Sheeb, placing his name in the Hall of Fame. The two friends look at the pages of the book with confused expressions. Not all high-ranking mages possess the same abilities. Some mages lock themselves in a room to train and level up faster. Meanwhile, others raise their skill level by fighting on bloody battlefields. Among these high-ranking mages, there are those who are called giants, like Garen Sheeb, the old man with the white beard. Suddenly, the two find the mage's picture in the history book in front of them. They look at the old man with mocking expressions without saying anything. Jaren asks if he exaggerated, and the brown-haired boy confirms it. The protagonist wants to increase her attack opportunities from 3 to 5, and the mage asks if she has no shame, but she was just kidding. Then, the young woman also notices that the place they are in is not very suitable for a duel, as there are many obstacles. With a snap of his fingers, the old man assures her that she does not need to worry about that. Suddenly, his magic, emanating from his hand, begins to manifest in the area. A small explosion of blue power appears between them, pushing all the objects away. Now there is a clear circle with no obstacles, and Garen asks if that space is enough. During the duel, the yellow-eyed girl will not have to worry about damaging the facilities with her magic, as the old man has created a protective barrier. She asks what will happen if something gets through, but it will be fine, since the platinum-level facilities are treated against magic. So, with that reassurance, her friend declares that Riley can attack. They will see if Riley's attacks are effective against a high-ranking mage, and the girl declares that they are going to smash the old man's nose. This is a great opportunity to test her safely. If she cannot land a valid hit, they will break her legs. But she is not that weak. Young mages who reach low rank before the age of 20 are called geniuses. All mages experience 2 awakenings in their lives. The first occurs at the age of 10, when they instinctively understand magic, mana, and the arcane, and are called apprentices. The second awakening happens in adulthood. The so-called attribute seed lies dormant and blossoms, granting them unique attributes, allowing for more sophisticated and powerful magic. Once the mages get used to the mana assigned to their attribute, they surpass the apprentice rank and ascend to the low rank. That is why the abilities of adult mages grow exponentially. They also become stronger as they get older, however. On the other hand, before their second awakening, those mages who surpass the apprentice rank before reaching adulthood, those, for that very reason, are called monsters like Riley. Excited, Jen wants to see the future of this girl who is in front of him. This is precisely why she should not take the selection test. If she does, the magical world will lose another promising talent. The old man explains that in this duel, the young woman has 3 attacks, and if he moves during that time, Riley will win. His plan is to show an overwhelming difference and scare her into giving up the test. It is a cruel method, but it is the only way to save this young mage. Whitebeard announces that they must begin now, and the girl nods, raising her hand to easily create a blue sphere of power. It grows and evolves using a magical surge. The magic missile is launched towards the old man, who in turn doesn't move. He notes that this attack was executed with great speed. That alone is a positive aspect, but the strike isn't imbued with much mana, or combined with techniques like rotation or trajectory deviation to bypass defenses. The mage creates a mana shield and immediately blocks the missile. This is a straightforward attack that does not require an attribute-based defense, and the old man was already expecting something like this. He thinks that if he had let her take the test in that state, she wouldn't have lasted long, but he suddenly feels something in his body. It could be paralysis. Garen knows that what he's feeling is magic. The terror one normally experiences when facing death, which she is inflicting on her opponent, who wonders what she did. Many times Garen had felt the thin line between life and death on the battlefield. Now he feels the same tension as before, even though it's coming from a low-level girl. As he defends himself from the attacks, the old man wonders what the problem could be. Suddenly his concern grows as he notices that his mana shield is disappearing. He thinks this technique might be meant to dispel his protection. A magic disc, green, appears behind him. The old man wants to use it to reinforce his attack. The disc rises and launches a green crystal to destroy the magic missile. Riley is surprised by the mage's defense. Her powerful missile ends up shattered into pieces on the ground. The brown-haired boy notices that the old man detected the attack and intercepted the magic before the shield could be dispelled. Garen suddenly considers a possibility. Could this whole plan be intentional? The young woman made an attack that was frontal and direct. He wonders if it was to lower his guard. It seems the girl's confidence doesn't come just from youthful arrogance, and the mage realizes he must keep an eye on her. Raising her hand again, the mage summons another sphere of blue energy. Suddenly her eyes widen, and the girl launches the magic sphere towards all of the old man's protective shields, taking him by surprise. He, in turn, raises his staff, deflecting the force of the blue orb. Once again, his power manages to shatter the missile into small fragments. Garen notices that she attacked precisely at the weakest point in his magic, something someone of her level shouldn't have been able to perceive. Furthermore, there is another important detail. Although it was subtle, Riley managed to push him back. She has an exceptional affinity. With mana for detecting weaknesses and the comprehension to exploit them immediately, it's almost as if an archmage were helping the girl. The old man also realizes that these are not the skills of an inexperienced person. This is someone who overcomes high-ranked techniques with ease, a genius. He has no choice but to acknowledge it. The girl will certainly survive the selection test. Garen lifts his left foot and takes a step forward. Confused, the girl, who already had another attack prepared, doesn't understand what just happened. She asks if she still has a chance to attack, but the old man says there is no need for a duel if the result is already decided. He then explains that with her second attack she managed to push him back, so she has won. As he promised, he will no longer intervene. Bowing, Darren apologizes for his presumptuous meddling. Riley declares that she already knew. She realized her second attack was effective, and the old man asks why she bothered to prepare the next attack spell. The young woman remembers she had 3 opportunities to attack, and then begins to cast her spell. Prepared, the girl wants her opponent to resume an offensive stance, emanating more magic. She still wants to confirm a few things, but the mage asks her to wait a moment. Scared, he wonders what it is she wants to confirm. The first attack made him deliberately lower his guard. Then the second attack revealed a characteristic skill of someone with experience. He questions if this girl is using the duel simply as a test against a high-level mage like him. Another sphere of blue magic is about to hit him in the face, and the old man thinks that this is crazy. The brown-haired boy watches the scene with a mocking expression. He knows that mages of another level are in a different league, and Garen comments that the girl's attack was unconventional. Handing her a towel, the old man reveals that if she had had more mana available, his life would have been in danger. Riley's friend states that this means her technique is good, but she doesn't have enough mana to sustain it, which is natural. The only magic the girl can use that has not undergone an attribute awakening is the magic missile. In standard non-attribute magic, the only thing she can do is add variations through technique. Calmly, the brown-haired boy declares that it's still fine. After all, the way she used the scatter to create an opening and launch a surprise attack is something that not even a high-level mage would like. Finally, he says that she is doing well. The 3 of them are leaving the hall, and the old man asks if they can keep the duel a secret between them. The 2 friends agree, remembering that they must avoid any conflict with other candidates. Riley then says she doesn't know what he's talking about. The old man just remembers reading something in Arcadia, and the old man understands that the girl has already figured it out. Darren asks where she is staying, and the young woman says that she's at an inn recommended by the place is called the Sky Whale Inn. The man then says that whoever recommended that place is not a good friend, since a psychopathic assassin is not someone to be trusted. He continues by informing them that there are many better places in Wilhelm, and the girl reveals that everything she has is in the bag she's carrying. He asks them to follow him and assures them that the place they are going to is 100 times better than the old inn where Riley was staying. The brown-haired boy asks if all inns aren't practically the same. They arrive at the Grand Hotel Arpelting W, where a table full of fine and expensive dishes is served, and they even ask if the girl needs anything else. Several maids are at the service of whoever needs them, and all this glamour leaves the kids speechless. The boy realizes that the place is incredibly different. Who recommended the old inn? It was Becky, but she was actually tricking Riley. When the mage trusted her, Riley stands up and declares that this is not right, and her friend asks why. Outraged, the young woman thinks about finding the woman and hitting her. Her friend considers this, thinking they were also at fault for believing her, but still Riley feels justified. Tomorrow she can get her revenge during the selection test. Suddenly, the girl considers this possibility, and gets excited about it. The old man doesn't understand anything that's happening between the two, since they are communicating with thoughts. He asks what Ray is doing, and she replies that she's just feeling a little tense. Garen asks if they have met Rebecca Duncan. The protagonist notices that he knows the woman, and the mage says that it would be strange not to have met her. The old man then remembers what he told the girl in the carriage about the people who see the selection test as a real battlefield. Rebecca is precisely that type of mage. Last year she was disqualified for excessive deaths during the process, and the year before that she killed the exam administrator. Most of the time she represses her madness, but once a year she unleashes her impulses during the test. The boy with brown hair floats and comments that they don't call her the homicidal maniac for nothing. Curious, the mage asks why the 5 magic towers don't do anything about it. If she's so dangerous, they could just block her at the registration stage. His friend approaches and explains that the towers have a simple reason for this. They want to use her as a testing mechanism. He explains that encountering a homicidal maniac like Rebecca Duncan during the test makes you wonder what she'll do in that moment, should it happen. The 3 of them arrive at a place indicated by the magic circle, and the back of the mage's hands glows. The place is the second test site, and the young man notices that the outside looks exactly like the selection test administration office. As they get closer, the old man tells them that they must enter. He touches the door with his hand, and pink magic emanates from it. The doors open and a powerful magic circle creates an intense wind for everyone. He starts talking to him about the event that is happening, but his friend is suspicious. He looks at the mage with a raised eyebrow. From the center of the magic, a square figure emerges. This is a phenomenon that Garen has experienced thousands of times. Then, the 3 of them disappear from the place, leaving only magical traces. This is the power of teleportation. The girl starts to open her eyes after the magical journey, and now they are in a hall full of people. The young man with brown hair notices that the place is extremely luxurious and resembles the interior of the Imperial Palace. They observe the objects around them and wonder if they really are in the Imperial Palace. However, this is not the Imperial Palace they know. The structure is completely different from the Empire's Great Hall. Rita, the interior is quite old, and the floor is already showing cracks. With confidence, Riley realizes that this is a ruin. Ruins are places where artifacts, treasures, and sleeping grimoires lie. Normally, these ruins are heavily protected by traps and guardians. This makes these dungeons the most difficult to invade and conquer. Apparently, choosing such a dangerous place for the test was to be expected. The girl notices that Sir Garen Cold has disappeared. However, her brown-haired friend points to the middle of the crowd and indicates that he is right there. Without wasting time, the girl is already trying to catch up to him, Mage. But someone approaches the duo. Rebecca arrives playfully, pushing the young woman, pretending to be surprised to run into the kids again, while Riley is completely serious, shaking off the mage Becky's hand. She asks how she's been, and if she enjoyed her time on the Sky Whale, but the girl replies that she didn't. The psycho questions if the hotel wasn't as good as they expected. The 2 friends contain their anger to avoid attacking her prematurely. First, Riley explains that she didn't go to that inn, then says she simply didn't stay at that hotel and spent 3 pleasant days in Arpel Sting. Her friend, knows that's a lie, since they only spent 2 days there after being tricked by Becky, but the girl wouldn't reveal that. Someone calls everyone's attention to look at a specific spot. All the examiners are wearing a star and greet the candidates, saying they will guide them through the second test, and Rebecca looks furious. Staring at Riley with a psychotic look, she says she will make her regret the audacity of the last challenge, but the young woman is confident she can defeat her. Irritated, the woman walks away and says they'll see, but the dark-haired boy doesn't understand. As always, he promises to sort things out later. One of the red-haired administrators indicates that this phase requires groups of 3 to compete against other groups. These group members will be assigned by the administration, and the competitors will have to cooperate. At the location, they will have to go through the test gates. A woman with glasses approaches their team. They are given 30 minutes to get acquainted with their team, and the girl with glasses is with Riley, her friend, and Becky. The maniacal mage regrets being on the same team as her enemy, who in turn says their fight will have to wait. Smiling, the girl feels satisfied to be on Rebecca's team, and the dark-haired boy thinks that this must be a dream for her. Even though he's on the same team as a murderous maniac, he feels good about the misfortune of Rebecca. Becky seems like an uncontrollable mage and could cause a lot of trouble, but she wouldn't attack the protagonist during the test. The administrator asks if anyone has any doubts, to which the psycho claims to have a question, and the red-haired woman attends to her. Becky asks what happens if the team members fight among themselves and is advised to adjust her behavior so things go well. The mage says that wasn't her question. She wants to know what happens if they just cast spells on each other. Knowing Rebecca, the supervisor just laughs at the question. Garen also observes her strange request. The brown-haired boy realizes that now the situation has taken a turn for the worse. The administrator says that the team competition is a testing method that evaluates mutual cooperation. Therefore, if someone on the team dies, everyone will be disqualified. Upon hearing that, Rebecca lets out a shout saying that it was absurd. All the other mages are discussing the same topic upon hearing the murmurs. The administrator asks everyone to be quiet, and they all look at her. Greenwar comments that, with the aura of a high-level mage, silencing dozens of people was nothing. She then says that they might have gotten a good deal for being mages. After all, they were priceless. No one would dare say anything without, no matter how much trouble they caused. As a result, their character became distorted, and their personalities destructive, and their social skills deteriorated, but that will no longer be allowed. To enter the magic tower, they must act not as individuals, but as members of a group, which is why the second test is a team competition to see how they cooperate with people they are meeting for the first time. He concludes by saying that if they are not prepared, they should just give up. Rebecca says she hates it, then takes Riley's hand and says that even if she doesn't want to do it, they have to give it their all. The grimoire comments that for her to contain her anger like that, it was because she really wanted to pass. He thought she would go crazy, but she held herself back. On second thought, Becky was reluctant to be eliminated even during their first encounter, and he comments that she wasn't just a psychopath who enjoyed killing, but that it could also be an act. At the back of the room, a girl tries to get everyone's attention. Rebecca comments that they can't hear anything, and the girl approaches. She says she likes ancient magic, stumbling over her words, and is interrupted by the girl who asks for her name. Olivia introduces herself and says she's from the Arcane School of Flames. Shouting, the girl calls the school a bunch of idiots who like ancient magic, and asks why she is without her group. Ancient magic was a system used in the past and is rarely practiced. It's traditional and outdated. Greenware comments that those who learn this magic are idiots, chasing a romanticized notion of history and fairy tales. People who indulge in such nonsense are called myth chasers and are treated as such, but he thought they had disappeared 300 years ago. The grimoire then comments that they have an illusionist assassin with anger issues and an antisocial ancient magic fanatic, so Riley was on a fantastic team. Darren calls out to the girl and asks how she is, since some people feel nauseous after teleportation. Riley says she's fine and asks if he got a good team. The man claims that he was satisfied, since they were all high-quality mages, and the grimoire comments that he was jealous. He then asks about her team, and is interrupted by Rebecca's complaints about Olivia, who mentions that she's keeping her distance because of the noise. The man asks if it's luck or misfortune to have Rebecca Duncan and an ancient magic mage on the same team. Greenware agrees that, regardless of her reputation, Becky was really strong. The problem is they don't know what she'll do once the test starts. They have to constantly watch their backs. As for Olivia, it's hard to expect anything from ancient magic, so the only ones to trust are Riley and Rebecca, fighting as a trio. In reality, they only have 2 members, and the guy comments that it feels hopeless. The grimoire continues, saying that they chose this test, so they must endure it with resilience and determination. It's not just their team that's dissatisfied. Everyone is asking the same thing, so they have to find strength in their companions as a unit and as a team. That's the essence of the second test. Rebecca is still yelling at Olivia, so expecting teamwork from people like that was irrational. Darren says goodbye to the girl. He is glad that she isn't nervous despite his worries and she thanks him. Then he just leaves. Ray realizes they are now competitors. Greenwar isn't worried. The months of training in the Lich's lair were significant, and he comments that he is confident. Through the selection test, they will achieve the result they desire. The administrator begins by saying that the second test will take place at the entrance of the ruins, introducing them and starting to explain the rules. The inside of the ruins is a labyrinth. They must find the hidden treasures there, and she shows the treasures to everyone. She touched a glowing orb that emitted an intense light, and from the light, a golden golem appeared. The test lasts 24 hours, and there are 2 conditions to pass. The first is that they must possess the core of the golden golem by the end of the test. The second is that all team members must be alive by then. In short, They must get the golem, take its core, all as a team, and survive for 24 hours, while being careful of hidden traps and guardians. It doesn't seem dangerous, and all the other groups thought the same. With a cheerful voice, the administrator comments that there are only 3 golems. There are 42 candidates and 14 teams in total, which means that only 3 teams can pass, and the Grimoire wonders what kind of test has only a 20% pass rate. There's no guarantee that the 3 golems will be found, the resources are limited, and the demand is excessive. They want to see fierce competition. Riley comments to her friend that this is cruel, and he says that the 5 great towers encourage competition among mages. To put it nicely, it's a meritocracy, but frankly, he says they just enjoy pitting them against each other. The woman continues, stating that the most dangerous thing is the Chimera, a creature designed solely for destruction and murder. The grimoire comments that the creature looks familiar. The administrator states that some might already know it. 5 years ago, there was an incident where a lich invaded the Eastern Empire, and she mentions that these are the same chimeras, and the grimoire remembers the skeleton. She continues, saying that upon passing through the gate, the team will be transported to a random location, and that passing the test won't be easy, but they will enjoy the glory of the 5 great towers of magic, and so the second test begins. The grimoire knows it has become the brains behind everything and comments about the size of the palace. It says they feel like dwarves visiting a giant's palace, but they are interrupted by a noise, something coming towards them. When everyone looks, it's a giant man with chains all over his body, carrying a sword. Riley asks if they mentioned anything about that, and her friend replies that they talked about obstacles, but that statue wasn't something authorized for combat. The girl then comments that they were supposed to go in, find the golden golem, and avoid those monsters, and the grimoire agrees, stating that this area was a red zone. Its instincts were screaming not to touch the statue, as it would take at least 3 CBS to even try, and it wonders who in their right mind would provoke that thing. When the mage on their team calls to Riley with her eyes shining, she says they should fight that monster. The grimoire screams, pleading for them to stop her. The girl grabs Becky's arm, who protests, saying she'll never get another chance like this. Turning to Olivia, she asks for help while the girl screams to be let go. Riley comments that they don't even know how strong it is, and the girl says they should find out by fighting. She adds that if they advance recklessly, they will all die and won't get anything. And the girl, smiling, says they'll get excitement. The girl asks if she wasn't going to thank her, and, after thanking her, she asks if she wanted to ruin the moment. The other one replies that she did, and they start arguing. Olivia shouts with tears in her eyes for them to stop arguing. They both look at her, and she asks what they're doing in front of a lifeless body, extending her hand towards them. Grabbing the girl's hand, Becky asks why she is interfering, and the girl asks if she doesn't feel sorry for the bodies. Irritated, she comments that this is why newbies are annoying, and asks the girl if she knows why she won't let her touch the bodies. The slime on the bodies was hound saliva. They have an excellent sense of smell, like wild dogs. They can track their own trails. Olivia apologizes, and Becky tells her to be more careful. Now that they're in front of a wall, Riley starts staring at the mage, and when she asks him why he is looking at her, he replies that he thought the girl would let the other one touch the bodies. Rebecca says she values her life, and the grimoire comments that, even so, she wanted to fight the stone giant. The mage repeats her friend's words. She says it's different, because fighting the giant would be exciting and that the hounds are just trash, and that she would only fight opponents on her level. As she says this, other mages appear to fight them. The mage gets excited about having her first battle, and everyone prepares. However, Olivia gets the group's attention. A monster appears behind their enemies, grabbing one of them by the head. The group is horrified to be attacked, and even more so because they can't see what is attacking them. Thus, the monster attacks the entire group. Meanwhile, Olivia, her mouth covered by her companion, and the others are hidden, watching the scene. The grimoire comments that this trial is truly cruel, and just watching the scene makes it want to vomit. Rebecca yells at her companion not to puke, and Riley tells his friend she is going to. He notes that it looks like a large dog. Then he asks if he should give it a try, since there's no one around to interfere. Looking again, he realizes that as it eats, its body becomes more visible. After the grimoire gives him confidence, he tells Becky to stop hiding. Riley says that if she wanted excitement, this would be a perfect opportunity. Rebecca then gets excited to fight, coming out of her hiding spot. The boy and the mage watch the creature growling at them. The girl notices something approaching, and then the monster attacks them with a magic ball. However, Riley uses his magic to dispel the attack. He comments that the monster seems pathetic, and his grimoire asks if it's because he managed to dispel its attack. He continues, saying that you shouldn't disturb a dog while it's eating. Rebecca tells the boy that he is very impressive for a kid. Near the monster, she says that no, there's no hesitation in his movements. Since she is close, the The creature tries to bite her, but ends up grabbing one of her clones. Excited, she gets on top of the creature, saying that, even with that, he doesn't come close to her level. Riley asks if she really needed to add such a childish comment. Still smiling, Rebecca begins to walk on the monster's body without getting hit. Mocking the creature, her clones on and around the monster begin to play with it, insulting it. Seeing the creature get more and more irritated, Riley asks if they should finish it off. Calling his name again, the girl agrees, and they both begin to prepare their magic, attacking it with a cross-magic missile. Sometime later, Becky arrives at the place where they were hiding, saying that it was easy. Since Olivia was still hiding and scared, the girl asks her to stand up, but the girl was still afraid and muttering, so Rebecca yells at her to get up and says it's over. The grimoire covers the boy's ears, and the girl calls Olivia an idiot, telling her to calm down. He comments that the mage takes good care of the other one, and the grimoire is in agreement. From what they've observed so far, that's Becky's way of showing affection. Riley comments that it seems the girl doesn't have a malicious nature, and the grimoire agrees, saying she's not a maniacal killer. She's still an eccentric mage, aggressive enough to pick a fight at the first meeting, and sometimes does crazy things without hesitation. But, on second thought, the grimoire asks if she doesn't act just like Riley, who becomes serious. His conclusion about Becky is that she's not someone who kills for pleasure, so he wonders what that warning Gwen mentioned was referring to, and it bothers him. But since they'll be together during the second test, they will naturally uncover the truth behind the rumors. Olivia asks the Great Mother of Magic to watch over the souls of the dead and the Goddess of Duty to gather their spirits. As everyone watches, when she finishes, Rebecca asks why she bothers with such a laborious ritual, asking why honor the dead, and Olivia begins to explain the traditions of ancient magic. The grimoire says it's a rule of the Blas Arcane School, and the boy says that it's just superstition. Riley decides to ask the girl a question, recalling the conversation about tracking magic. Olivia said she didn't know how to use it, so with that in mind, Riley asks how she passed the first test. Riley points out that she couldn't use tracking magic, so he doesn't know how they found the administration office. Becky realizes it's true and calls Olivia an idiot, wondering how she passed the first test. The red-haired girl gets nervous and stammers, saying she just had to prove her knowledge of ancient magic. She finally manages to speak, and says that there was no rule requiring her to find the office by herself, explaining that she asked a mage specializing in tracking to find the office for her. Everyone is completely shocked, and Olivia states that she hates to admit it, but she knows ancient magic better than anyone and deserves to enter the 5 magic towers. She says there's no one better than her in the world, but she couldn't find the office on her own. She claims it's unfair to fail the test just because she can't use tracking magic. She continues her explanation of how she convinced a mage to do her that favor. Desperate, she says that at first she asked for help, but no one would help her. She adds that they treated her like she was crazy, saying she didn't deserve to take the test. The grimoire says it would have done the same thing. Olivia's companion claims she used torture magic to convince them. He states that terrible spells exist in ancient magic and that she excels at torture magic. With that, she managed to convince the mage to do her a favor. Becky wonders how. The administrator accepted the situation. The young woman explains that she found the office using her skills, whether they liked it or not. Rebecca is questioned for being a psychopath and yet still talking about respect for the dead. Olivia asks what one thing has to do with the other, and says she was being sincere, mockingly. Becky says the young woman is crazy. After saying those words, the girl collapses, saying her stomach hurts and is held by her friends, while Greenwar wonders if anyone there is in their right mind. Footsteps are heard. 12 hours have passed in the second test, and no golden golem core has been obtained. The boy asks if they are still running while looking at the map, and Relay confirms it. It's explained that the condition to pass the second test is to find the core of a golden golem. However, even if the students find it, the golem flees. Relay encounters some golems, but they are running away quickly. Becky says that capturing the creature is ridiculously easy. The protagonist notices there are 2 golems near them, and both stop moving. Far from there, the old man and his 2 companions find the core they were looking for, and that Mr. Garen Zebold handled everything on his own. The old man held off hundreds of demons in the mountains. Thoughtfully, the green-haired boy calls the mage, asking her if after finding the core they shouldn't take a break, considering they've been using tracking without a pause for half a day. Garen states that, even if he wanted to rest, there's no time for it. He quickly asks Arpel a question, asking him if he hasn't had any doubts since they entered the school. Seeing that the boy has no questions, he asks for the golem core. The old man states that it possesses a peculiar magical power, saying he has never encountered such a magical power in his life, and that it was probably created by the 5 great magic towers for a test. Zebold isn't sure why. They spent half a day searching for such a powerful core. Even with the ruins covered in interference, they couldn't detect its unique magical power. It's explained that Arpel Stingwat is a skilled mage who reached the intermediate level at 29 years old. He was the second son of the prestigious Sting W family. The young man doesn't understand how he managed to track such a strong power when not even the old man could do it. Zebold says it was just one of the intentional tricks and asks his companions to examine the magic. They all realize it's dragonhide and it seems to have been enchanted. Dragonhide has excellent anti-magic properties, which makes it undetectable. That's why they had difficulty finding it. Arpel wonders why one of the 5 towers would use such a valuable material just for a test. The old man gets the boy's attention and tells him he doesn't understand what the test means. Zebold says he wants to ask one more question. He states that there were about 42 candidates in the ruins and he doesn't know how many are left now, but all of them must be skilled at tracking to have passed the first test. Now that the hidden core has been exposed, the old man asks what the boy thinks will happen. Arpel realizes what it all means. The old man states that from the beginning the test was not about finding the golden golem cores, but about protecting or capturing them. Thus, the team that finds the golem first will be relatively skilled, but they become a public enemy to the rest. The green-haired boy realizes it is many against one, and that this is part of the 5 Great Magic Towers plan. He questions what the fighting team will do in this situation, as it is already being watched by other groups. Arpel realizes that everything was designed for multiple possibilities. The boy asks why Shieb removed the core, knowing all this, and that he could have left it there until the test was over. Clearly, the old man explains that they will eventually have to fight, so it would be better to face them all at once. The other groups observing the scene decide to attack the one who took the core head-on. The old man defends himself quickly, efficiently, and practically. The opponents are neutralized, writhing on the ground, unable to move. Cold uses the magic of the newly collected core against the opponents, ordering Arpel and Dorothy to get ready. With the trio's combined strength, they could face 10 opponents. Far from there, Becky appears and calls out to Riley. The girl asks if the protagonist is also sensing something. It is the power of the golem's core, and that is why they must get there as quickly as possible. Surprisingly, the blonde girl says no. Rebecca suggests that if they pick up the pace, they will arrive faster and be able to face the team that took the core. Riley states that other teams will think the same thing and that, by the time they get to the place, they will already be there. Becky asks what they should do. The protagonist explains that they must wait for everyone to be focused, and only then take the golden core. She tries to continue her explanation, but Becky interrupts her. Still, the young woman says her friend should already be following her advice. Convinced, the girl in the red dress agrees to listen. The grimoire thinks that the other competitors do not have tracking skills as good as Riley's. It concludes that the other candidates could only find a golden golem by pure luck. At that moment, the previously silent core begins to emanate a powerful energy. All the candidates run towards the magical object, and chaos breaks out. The protagonist wonders why the magic intensified. The boy believes it is a device designed to force the groups to fight each other. Riley thinks someone did it on purpose, possibly to reduce the number of competitors all at once. The grimoire wonders who could be capable of something like that. Becky gets irritated seeing everyone fighting, while her group just walks calmly. She asks how much longer they have to walk, and says she is dying of boredom. Olivia asks her to hang in there a little longer. Rebecca takes the walk as an opportunity to ask the red-haired girl why she chose ancient magic. The girl asks why she is suddenly asking, and Becky replies that she is bored, adding that ancient magic has no practical use, so she does not understand the girl's choice. Before Olivia can answer, the protagonist comments that Becky also belongs to the branch specializing in illusion magic. The young woman gets annoyed with the comparison and says that she can handle basic magic, whereas Olivia is a somewhat incomplete mage. The grimoire ends, confirming that the embarrassed red-haired girl apologizes for ancient magic not being useful. Rebecca says there must be a reason why she focuses so much on ancient magic and neglects other branches, trying to explain. Olivia says she used to listen to stories as a child that influenced her, adding that Becky should read those stories too. The nature of said stories is explained, but Becky dismisses them as mere fairy tales, mockingly saying that it's impossible to erase a mountain or part a sea in two, and that even if Marth Ferrick were reincarnated, it still wouldn't be possible. Olivia tries to convince her that it's not a fairy tale and that it really happened. Quickly, Becky asks why no one from the school has ever been able to do it, and if she claims it's true, she should be able to prove it. Lowering her head, the red-haired girl doesn't know how to respond, but Becky says she's only mentioning it out of concern. She continues, saying it's a waste to focus all her potential on fairy tale illusions, still mocking her. Rebecca asks if Olivia has anything beyond torture magic. Once again, the young woman apologizes, trying to motivate her. Becky says she used to be like her and thought that mastering illusion magic would make her strong. Becky continues, stating that everything she is saying is for Olivia's own good. At that moment, Olivia thanks her, then their walk resumes. Riley calls out to the grimoire, asking if it knows whether the magic from the fairy tales really existed. The protagonist asks who is right. Without hesitation, the young man says that Olivia is right and that ancient magic did exist. He adds that mountains were erased, seas were parted, and enemy armies were annihilated with a single touch of magic. He concludes by saying that all of it was achieved by him and his friends, who are now legends. More details about ancient magic are explained. Riley asks why people forgot that type of magic then, and the grimoire says it is the terrifying power of time, explaining that magic is deeply tied to the flow of history, and that as time passes, people forget certain achievements. The boy mentions that a long time ago, the Khmer, an era of wars came to an end. Thus, the empire, supported by archmages, unified the continent. The emperor who unified the continent named the nation the Rights Empire and declared an era of peace across the entire continent. As a result, destructive power was no longer necessary. Riley states that it's because war mages are not needed in times of peace. The grimoire concludes that the empire sent the mages to laboratories to help improve the lives of the imperial citizens, and to take care of neglected dungeons. It is explained that in order to master forgotten magics, this new magic had to be developed. Magic with great destructive power was excellent for defeating enemies. A man calls for everyone to attack him no matter how many there are, while another person orders him to stop. So much magic in a dungeon complicates things, and a cave-in occurs. Someone appears injured, buried with only one arm sticking out. The ceiling is about to collapse, and everyone will be buried alive. Riley appears, staring intently at something. They state that for safety and efficiency, magic changed, and that tracking magic was developed during dungeon conquests. The grimoire continues its explanation attentively. On the other hand, magic with great destructive power lost its usefulness and became ancient magic, becoming obsolete as the empire stabilized. Some people began to take an interest in ancient magic, but the gap in history had already grown too large. Thus, no one remembers that the legends truly existed, and it is a bitter truth. Riley asks if her friend still knows how to use ancient magic. He says yes, but that he no longer sees a reason to use it. The protagonist asks if she can learn it. Even so, Green War claims that ancient magic is useless. Unconvinced, the girl says that if a war breaks out, the ancient magic will be used again. Green War says that this type of magic is not easily learned. One must study ancient runes and memorize various incantations, and that it is necessary to transform the magic circuits engraved in the body, which means Riley would have to start from scratch. The girl would have to reverse her greatest strength, and her affinity, and everything she has learned. Hearing that, the young woman decides against it, stating that she will only be able to learn ancient magic in her next life. All the friends hug. Far from there, a group is sitting. A golem is tied up. Becky celebrates that the group found the core, but another team is already there. The group's expression is one of exhaustion, which means the operation must have been difficult. Rebecca notices that the guys who captured the golem did not remove the core. The golem becomes enraged from being tied up. Using magic, one of the guys says he will calm the creature. Riley wonders why they are keeping the golem alive instead of just killing it and taking the core. Green War realizes that it is dragon skin. The young woman agrees and sees that is why the magical power is weak, even with the golem nearby. It is explained that this was a tactic to keep other groups from approaching, and that they would only remove the core near the end of the test. Green War states that the girl needs to be careful with them. Rebecca adds that they are a strong group and caution is needed when fighting them. Becky still claims that fighting strong people is something they have always done. She orders everyone to follow her towards the group. The trio that captured the golem notices the presence of the other group. The girl in the red dress lets out a huge laugh. They move in to attack. However, Rebecca keeps laughing. Because of this, before she can attack, one of the guys says that he surrenders. The girl is surprised and asks if the young man is joking. The other group members ask why their leader is doing that. He tells them to the guys to shut up and kneel, or else they'll die. Becky is confused. After all, they were supposed to be a strong group that would fight them. Riley thinks it was because of Becky, since she's very famous in the world of magic. The leader on the ground begs for forgiveness and apologizes to Olivia, leaving everyone bewildered. They say that they will hand over the golem voluntarily, without any torture magic. The red-haired girl says the leader was the one who helped her pass the first test. Everyone then understands what's happening. At that moment, the small creature is sleeping peacefully in Riley's lap. The protagonist sees that it's a baby, and looks more like a sphinx cat. Rebecca appears near them, asking to pet it too, and comments that the animal looks very cute. Suddenly, the creature becomes enraged and leaps onto her hand, biting her. She asks if she's okay, but her enemy's hand is bleeding, which isn't good. This is a chaotic team, but at least they got a golem without a fight. The dark-haired young man realizes it's better to avoid unnecessary battles, even though the maniac loves to fight and seems dissatisfied with it. Becky brings the girl with glasses attention to her torture powers, since the leader got scared seeing her, and the girl reveals she trained a lot after noticing a detail. The psycho says that the girl shouldn't have been trembling before and could have used her powers. However, there's a catch. This type of magic has a 1-month cooldown because it's ancient magic and always has flaws. Rebecca calls her teammate crazy, and Riley's friend doesn't know who is calling whom crazy. She also asks if the young woman with torture powers is from the southern region, and she confirms it. Explaining, the maniac says that every time she heard the voice of the girl with glasses, she spoke with an accent or dialect, and the friends with the cat agree. Next, the dark-haired boy reveals that the South has many crazy people and that the most eccentric ones usually come from there. Pouting, the yellow-eyed girl asks if that isn't regional discrimination, and her friend freezes paralyzed. After that, he tries to explain, saying he's been collecting data for years, but the young woman knows it's judgment and is disappointed in him. The boy doesn't understand, since when does she care about moral values? But they hear Rebecca's voice in the background. She places a hand on her chest and declares she's also from the South. The two women understand each other, saying they're from the same place. Riley tells GMW that the southern region has a lot of crazy people, and he gets irritated, since he just said that. The girl doesn't remember saying it, and her friend says she must have been affected by the story of Pinocchio as her nose grew. However, the young woman says that was her favorite story when she was a child, and Green doesn't understand how such a story exists. Smiling, Riley says she was just kidding, and the boy feels tricked. The only stories she knows are titles her friend has never even heard of, but the girl says it's obvious he wouldn't know them. After all, those stories were written especially for her by Uncle Robert. Green War asks, "Who's that?" Then, the protagonist has a memory of a blonde man amidst flames, with someone telling her to run fast. She explains that he was a member of the same thieves guild, and the boy asks if the stories were at least normal. The stories taught lessons like, don't trust others and others like that, which scares the boy, but helps him understand why his friend is crazy. 20 hours have passed since they entered the ruins, and there are 4 hours left until the end of the test. Riley uses her magic to see that no candidates have approached this corner. Yawning, she reveals it's been a long day, and her companion says that they just need to hold on a little longer, just 4 more hours, and after that, the challenge will be over. Green War realizes that the test will soon be over, and that they will pass without any problems. Suddenly, he hears a noise, and Riley panics upon hearing it. Then, a purple magic light zigzags towards them, ready to attack. It gets closer and closer, and the mages begin to get up to defend against the attack. Raising her hand, the protagonist summons her blue magic. She concentrates all her mana in the dissipation process, focused on finishing off the magic sphere. Apparently, the attackers could ruin her victory in the challenge, and the two women from the south stand up, terrified by what they see. Becky yells at Riley, saying she told her no one was coming. In response, the girl says that her find path didn't detect anything. Outraged, the woman tells her not to be ridiculous and says it's impossible that the young woman didn't detect anything. The girl's magical affinity is unmatched, and with it she could detect hidden traps in the 5 great magic towers and still use find path in ruins filled with all sorts of magical interference. Greenware knows that Rebecca is aware of that potential, so it doesn't make sense unless the enemies are using dragon skin or something similar. Suddenly, a group of hooded people approaches. They are wearing dragon skin on their heads. It's from them that the purple magic attacking the group is coming from. They're really coming with everything they've got. He thinks that if the enemies already have dragon skin, that would mean they found the golden golem. But why would people like that attack Riley's team? The dark-haired boy doesn't understand why, but there are many hypotheses, all uncertain. For now, one thing is certain: these people are dangerous. The mana concentration, the casting speed, and the trajectory precision are remarkable, and all those skills are better than Riley's. Besides, the young mage realizes that it's a familiar mana and feels it. Green also perceives it, and even if it's a strange hypothesis, everyone on his team raises their hands to combine their powers. The enemy team does the exact same thing. They are creating mana spheres. Suddenly, colored lines appear in the middle of the battlefield like lasers. The boy with brown hair notices that this is reconnaissance. This is the Cold War to assess the opponent's level with subtle mana. Mana is like instruments that remember the sound of their musicians, depending on the type of magic the user performs. The mana forms a unique wave and flows quickly towards a mage who pursues it with speed. For a mage who pursues destructive magic, the mana is full of violence. For another mage who seeks precise magic, the mana is clean and orderly. And for a mage who brings death, the mana is filled with a dense killing intent. From this, it's possible to predict the opponent's next move. The mage can evaluate their compatibility with himself and map out all possible paths of the battle, and this is called reconnaissance. Upon realizing who it is, Riley says he didn't expect to meet the opponent this way. He starts to take off his hood, and it's revealed to be Garen. Greenware wonders why, of all people, it had to be him. Serious. The old man comments that he didn't want things to end this way, and the boy thinks that he doesn't want to face him as an enemy. They want to know if the old man is there for the core. However, the old man already has one of those. Riley tries to question him, but Garen reminds him of what he had said before. The second test attracts many mages, and some madmen see this place as a legitimate battlefield, and he also has a purpose in the test. The girl listens attentively to what he is about to say. Finally, the old man declares that his objective is to kill Rebecca Duncan. The old man just keeps grudge against one person from this place, and that's the maniac. If she's allowed to live, she'll only bring more disaster to the magical world. Suddenly, they remember the rule that states if a team member dies, the entire team is disqualified. Riley says she will be disqualified if Becky dies, which is why the mage said it was a shame things have come to this. She looks at her enemy with rage, excited. The psycho says she will take care of the old man because there are things that she needs to settle. Worried, the protagonist tries to stop her, but her friend says this is the right choice, since they can't face Garen. Green War says it's because of the old man's compatibility. The girl with yellow eyes doesn't use a conventional fighting style. Her missile is her main weapon, which alters its speed and trajectory to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. Now, Garen's magic is completely defensive. He maintains an impenetrable defense and shows no weak points. In this case, it would be easier and better if they faced the other two from his team. Riley warns her teammate that it will be a difficult battle, but apparently, Becky already knows. The woman says she only fights opponents on her level. Besides, there's a perfect enemy right in front of her, and she can't waste this battle. Suspiciously, the mage observes his opponent's resolve, then touches Dorothy's head. And he warns her that the opponent she will face is not easy. She doesn't need to worry about the girl who only knows ancient magic and the other one is pretty, which he can tell just by observing. Dorothy doesn't understand something. According to her analysis, the smaller girl seems to be just a low-level mage, and he's right. Irritated, the girl wants to know with what nerve Riley came to the selection test being low-level, and even though she was warned not to judge, she doesn't stop. Finally, the old man advises Arpel to take good care of Miss Dorothy, and he understands. The mage asks if they will only have to defeat those two. In response, Garen warns her not to let her guard down, and the girl lifts her foot. She ends up stomping on the ground hard, and from it emerges a dark, purple magic. Then it summons claws and bolts that head towards the opposing team. Green War realizes that this is the darkness attribute. The team with Dragonskin is serious and focused on their attack. Suddenly, the magic surges and begins to form a dark transfer. One of the rays shoots forward with speed and precision in the attack. It seems that only Garen and Rebecca are left. She intently watches the battle that is about to begin. Then, the woman bows and reveals that it is an honor to fight Garen Siebel. Approaching the old man, the maniac says the name Sharon. Shortly after, she asks if he knows how much the girl talked about him. It's the first time Becky has seen the man, but she feels a sense of familiarity from having heard about him. Threateningly, Garen calls the woman by her name. With rage in his eyes, he orders her not to dare mention his granddaughter's name with her filthy mouth. In a flashback, the girl is kneeling and crying. She begs and pleads to be forgiven. The magic surrounds the rest of the group who are teleported. They are in a place that looks like an indoor garden for giants. Green War realizes he isn't immobilized, since there's undergrowth, and wonders if only the two of them were teleported. Suddenly, he sees the girl with glasses sobbing in a corner, and is surprised by her presence. Sneaking in, the cat also appears. Apparently, Toby is with them, and that's a relief, because losing the golem they worked so hard for would be the worst. This makes Green War wonder why they were brought there. The magic used was Dark Transfer, a powerful spell that forcefully relocates targets, but with restrictions. One of them is the high mana consumption, which would be a huge risk for a brief separation. So there must be another reason. This place might have a feature that gives them an advantage. Relay notices that the plants scattered around block their vision, even with mana detection, and this isn't good for a battlefield. This is true, but in a situation like this, the dark-haired boy thinks it's important to consider all circumstances, since their opponents are mages. What could be the reason for having transported the team to this location, even at the cost of visibility? Suddenly, the boy has an idea. When he steps on the ground, a bit of purple magic appears. His friends don't get it yet. Meanwhile, Dorothy complains about the missed opportunity for Gwen in her match, and Arpel points out that ambushes are their honorable actions. The woman doesn't care about honor, since they aren't knights, and reveals there's something she doesn't understand. Annoyed, she asks why she has to give her all for a coward. Besides, there are those two low-level kids, and the girl doesn't know why she should worry about them. Arpel warns her not to let her guard down, but Dorothy treats the situation with negligence and asks if he doesn't consider it unfair too. Confidently, she says it's practically 2 against 1, and GMW reveals that it would be a very unfavorable battle. She suggests that the kids should surrender, since Rebecca is practically dead, and Old Man Zebold is fighting her seriously. No matter how skilled she is, it's difficult to face a high-level mage alone. Basically, it's this. Either Riley manages to join Becky before she dies, or Rebecca will die, and everyone will fail the test. The girl asks her friend if that's possible, and it seems the chances are slim, since the two mages seem to be mid-level veterans. Riley reflects on the situation. The pair of enemies says they don't want to engage in a meaningless fight, but if they insist, it could happen. Then, Arpel uses his magic and the plants begin to move. They transform into giant carnivorous plants and won't hold back at all, as the old man recommended. After all this happens, the friends realize that was the main reason they were moved to the garden. This is Arpel's ability that he inherited from the great archmage Cranwell Stingwat and his earth attribute. Riley hears that name and thinks about it. A trail of purple magic coming from Dorothy is about to touch his feet. The girl is startled by this. Suddenly, a huge magical explosion occurs on the spot, but the young woman manages to escape. She prepares her defensive stance, as there are plants above her and dark magic coming from the ground. With just one step, a powerful blue mana begins to emanate from the supposedly low-level boy. The enemies don't want to fight her, as it would be humiliating for both of them. Dorothy warns that the threats are over and tells Riley to surrender. She also says there will be many opportunities, since he's young, when Green War starts to. Mocking the opponent's powers, the protagonist asks her friend for his thoughts. She wants to know if he thinks the young woman can defeat them. Analyzing the situation, the boy realizes it's a battle at an extreme disadvantage, since the two mid-level mages are in perfect condition. However, the judgment of the grimoire, which has faced countless enemies for millions of years, says it's possible. Greenware mentions that in his hometown, there's a book detailing foolproof strategies. One of them states that by knowing yourself and your enemy, you will not fear 100 battles. The brown-haired boy asks what their priority target is, and the girl says they should aim for the man who controls the plants first. This is because he's the core of their combination, and if all the plants disappear, the shadows will also naturally vanish. Pleased, the boy reveals that this is the correct strategy. That man is a dangerous opponent, because he's capable of binding someone with vines, paralyzing them with spores from fungi, and attacking with carnivorous plants. However, there's a question Greenware wants to ask. He asks who created the archmage Cranwell Stingwat, the inventor of this plant-based magic. The girl recalls the 5 archmages: Yanin Skin, Charon Shello, Cranwell Stingwat, Dimitri Casson, and Martha Ferrick. She had heard that they were talented geniuses with a passion for magic. Her friend thinks they were just a bunch of idiots, but even so, they weren't the type to give up easily. Riley has heard enough about the boy's disciples, so she already knows the story of Cranwell Stingwat, who was once asked by his master what he liked. His master was surprised by his answer. Excited, the student showed a pot with a plant. He revealed that his passion was cultivating and caring for plants. Now, Greenware wants to know what he thinks about that type of magic. Now, the two friends know their opponents very well. Dorothy notices they are laughing and have apparently already made a decision. Indignant, she orders the boy to choose between fighting them or surrendering. Riley calls out to her friend and talks about a fairy tale she read that left a strong impression on her, called Ami the Swindler. That was one of the stories written by Uncle Robert, who was part of the Dragons Guild. So, the girl is going to show how Ami pulled off her scams in the story, and the dark-haired boy listens attentively. Then, the girl tells her enemies to take this. They don't understand what he's saying. Riley orders them to take the golden kitten-shaped golem. Dorothy is surprised by this, since Zebold had warned that they would definitely fight back. Still, the woman realizes that if he chose to fight, the girl is crazy. So, she says this isn't bad for her side and asks for the golem to be handed over. The poor kitten is crying because it's saying goodbye, but Riley orders it to stop crying and go over there. Excited, Dorothy calls the creature to her so that Big Sister can take care of it. Greenwar asks, sarcastically, what the strategy is behind that move. The psychology being used is that people don't guard against creatures weaker than themselves. The boy must watch the situation closely. Toby approaches the enemy carefully. Riley tells him to go with a smile on his face. Cautiously, the kitten prepares for its surprise. The creature's final orders are to bite the opponent hard. Toby attacks with all its speed, aiming for Dorothy's face. When it reaches her hand, it sinks one of its sharp golem teeth into it, making her bleed. With the woman crying out in pain, her companion gets worried and goes to help her. The protagonist begins to form her magic missile in her hand, then launches it at her enemy's face. Arpel watches the scene in shock. He summons a mana shield to protect his partner. Greenwar is unimpressed by his weak defense. That was a careless strategy from his opponent. Suddenly, not even Arpel's weak magic can contain the missile and the attack starts to take effect. Then the shield begins to crack and the man complains about it. The two partners manage to dodge the enemy's attack. The dark-haired boy realizes that it was a quick and intelligent response. Dorothy declares that the girl is crazy for attacking them in such a cowardly way. In response, Riley asks if they are knights who pursue fair and honest duels. The girl recalls that she was asked whether she would fight or surrender, and she declares that she chose to fight between the two options, and moreover, she will win triumphantly. Then the girl bravely calls her enemies to battle. Meanwhile, in the battle between Guerin and Rebecca, the old man doesn't want the woman to speak his beloved granddaughter's name. Ironically, the maniac comments that those are painful words and asks if her mouth is so foul because of her reputation as a killer. She approaches her opponent. She declares that, even if others do, the old man shouldn't insult her. With a threatening gaze, she says it's because she avenged Charon for him 2 years ago. At the selection test site, some people appear running and one asks them to get out of the way. Someone approaches and crosses the finish line. The girl celebrates, saying she is the number one. She is Rebecca Duncan, celebrating having passed the first test in the shortest time possible. Becky celebrates having won again. She notices that Karen isn't there and wonders where the girl went, while people ask how many clones of the girl there are. The other participants are frustrated for having lost, but someone running catches their attention. A blonde girl is running from a large monster and begs them to please help her. The young woman asks them to save her. Rebecca realizes it's Charon and asks why she is screaming. Then Becky starts having visions. The girl sees her friend being chased and watches everyone else laughing at the situation. She becomes desperate. Back in the present, the young woman is shown with the old man, and she says she avenged Charon for him. The conversation continues, and the girl claims they let her friend die, that they could have helped her, but they just stood there laughing at her. Rebecca claims that they killed Charon and that she killed them all in revenge. The old man says that isn't revenge, and that the girl is justifying murder and staining her honor with a massacre disguised as justice. It is explained that 2 years ago, an elder from the 5 great magic towers lost his life. 1 year ago, dozens of mages from various schools were also killed. Since that day, Rebecca Duncan has been called the murder maniac, a testament to the birth of the nickname as a homicidal maniac, and that it didn't help Charon at all. Following up on that, the old man says he will kill the girl with his own hands to clear his granddaughter's name. Mockingly, Becky asks what honor he is talking about. The girl says his only granddaughter died, and yet, he's still worried about honor, and she doesn't get it. The man grabs the girl by the head, saying he has always wondered how someone like Rebecca could be his granddaughter's best friend. The young woman replies that she thought the same thing, and didn't understand how someone so pure could be related to the old man. Theodolph tries to answer but is interrupted. Becky asks why the man talks so much, saying that a mage speaks through magic, and that's what the old man always told Charon. A spell is cast, and the man says this is the final warning for the girl to not mention his granddaughter again. Ignoring the warning, Rebecca mentions Karen's name again, saying she is her best friend and the old man's only granddaughter. Irritated, Theodolph. A windstorm fills the field, and several stones begin to fall and be hurled about. Becky gets buried under the stones. The girl is badly hurt, but the old man realizes that all this time he has been dealing with a clone of Duncan. He finds the trick quite amusing, yet the spells continue to be cast. He starts to see Rebecca again, but before he can even think, the girl is behind him with a sword to his neck. The old man says he needs a moment to defend himself. He quickly tries to cast another spell on the girl, but just like before, it's in vain. In an instant, the girl wounds Theodolph. Everything slows down, and his world turns upside down. The sensation the old man feels is the same one he has experienced hundreds of times on the battlefield, and he believes he is going to die. Then, he falls to the ground. Surprisingly, the old man regains consciousness and is on his feet in front of Duncan. The girl calls him by his name. saying she's disappointed and doesn't understand how he was so slow to escape an illusion. Rebecca says that Riley broke out of the illusion in 1 second, while the old man took 2 seconds. Becky explains what just happened to Theodolph, asking the old man if he just saw his own death. He observes the girl in front of him as scenes of Becky's attack are shown. The man's hands clench and tighten. He realizes something, and the old man claims that Rebecca is using cheap tricks again. The girl says they are as cheap as the old man's eyes and states that she didn't start on a battlefield like he did. Displeased, the man asks if the battlefield wasn't part of the girl's intention all along. Mockingly, she asks if he was trying to lure her there. She says that if a big fight broke out, she would definitely appear, and also says that the old man deliberately exposed the core's magical power. The old man confirms it, saying there is no mage more aggressive than her. The girl says she would have liked to go too, but Riley stopped her. A wand is pointed at Becky as she holds the magical artifact. The old man says that since Rebecca didn't go, he had to come find her. The tip of the magic wand begins to glow. Perplexed, the girl tries to move her hands to push the object away, but she is unable to do so. The young woman applauds. She says the old man is impressive. The young woman says the old man fought against everyone, the candidates, just to trap her, and that she must have killed dozens with it. In disbelief, she doesn't understand why they call her a murderer, and accuses the old man of being contradictory. Irritated, the man stares at her, saying that she asked him if he had seen death. The old man says that he has, but the death that appeared to him was the girl's own, and that he will show it to her. Becky listens to everything attentively. The girl closes her eyes and says she remembers what her mother used to say. She states that 9 out of 10 herbalists die in the mountains by falling off cliffs while gathering herbs. It's explained that a swordsman fights with his sword and dies by it, that an alchemist dies in his laboratory, and that mages die walking the path of magic. Rebecca asks the old man to show her the death he saw for her. The girl says she wants to see what happens so that her 27 years won't have been in vain. A power is launched towards the old man. He watches Becky firmly. Someone appears and asks them to come closer. GMW and Riley appear, calling the other duo losers. The boy evaluates the reaction and says it was better than Becky's. The other girl curses the protagonist for falling for her provocation. Irritated, the taunting continues and the girl is called a brat and asked if she thinks the duo is worthless. Completely losing it, the white-haired girl says she will destroy her opponent while casting spells. GMW appears, saying that composure is the most basic virtue of a mage. The power continues to be launched. Riley manages to defend himself and says that magic fueled by emotion makes the attack's trajectory obvious. The protagonist casts an even stronger spell. The boy with Dorothy asks for calm. Even so, the battle is practically won. Several magics and powers begin to be launched into the air. The battle continues with intensity. Dorothy asks Arpel to do his best, but the boy says he's frustrated. Green says he appreciates that the young woman has inherited Cranwell's magic, but reflects that she hasn't progressed in plant magic in the 300 years he has been asleep, and for that reason she will never defeat them by using shadow displacement. The gray-haired girl has little magic left, as her wound continues to bleed. Physically and mentally exhausted, she can barely keep fighting, causing her shadow plants to become slower. Riley's friend knows he only needs to worry about Arpel, but he has the advantage. Even so, the protagonist warns that it could be dangerous, and since they're running out of time, even if they defeat the duo, they need to join Becky before she dies, otherwise they will lose. The boy asks what they should do, and Riley says they must act. The protagonist asks her friend if he can sever the connection between the mage and the summoned creature. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs. Riley takes a huge leap. Dorothy and Arpel can't believe what they're seeing. The girl manages to move in a quick and efficient way. No one understands how it's possible, since no mage moves like that. While moving, the girl thinks about how to sever the connection between the mage and the summoned creature, concluding that she'll need to attack the mage directly to achieve it. The green-haired boy falls to the ground after being attacked by the girl. Dorothy is also hit. Riley breathes a sigh of relief after attacking the duo. She explains that it was a moment of superhuman concentration. Greenwar believes that her friend is extremely exhausted. Nearby, a young red-haired woman watches the protagonist and hears a noise that catches her attention. She sees someone crouching behind a bush. The boy says that Olivia is also safe, adding that the girl has some minor injuries, but managed to protect herself. Someone approaches. Ray notices something on the ground, and it's a golem. They quickly notice the creature has a puncture wound, and that it must have been hit by a plant. The protagonist approaches and inspects the wound. A silence fills the air. Looking at her hand, the girl sees a colorful sphere. She says it's time to help Becky before it's too late. It's explained that the battle is over, but they both need to help Rebecca. The girl is fighting against Garen Zeb. Ray quickly locates the young woman. Using tracking magic, the two of them hurry. But as she looks at the map, something catches the girl's attention at that moment. She looks again, and the young woman realizes that Becky's presence has disappeared. Another person approaches and orders the duo to stop. They both look and realize it's Siebold. The old man declares that Rebecca Duncan is dead. He informs them that Riley's test ends right at that moment. The protagonist says she can still feel the other girl's presence, but it's very weak, and that kind of presence can't be considered alive. She remembers the rule that if any team member dies, the team would be disqualified. The young woman is devastated to learn that she will no longer continue in the test. The old man says that Duncan committed unforgivable atrocities. Still very affected, Riley asks if the man lost a family member because of Becky. He claims to have lost something much more important. He says it was his honor. The protagonist is left speechless. After a moment of silence, she says that the old man is very contradictory. Then, the girl says that he despised mages who treated the test like a battlefield, and continues by saying that he also used the selection to get revenge, and that's no different from the actions he himself despised. The old man regrets this and says he has nothing more to say. Irritated, the protagonist says that everything is so useless. However, she has a quick vision. Siebold wonders what's happening. He realizes the girl is planning to fight him right now. The old man asks why, and states that the test is already over. Riley says she will fight him because he killed Becky. Mockingly, the old man doesn't believe the girl has grown so fond of the murderer so quickly, and asks if she's trying to avenge Rebecca Duncan. The protagonist asks how it would be possible to avenge her friend. She says that Becky's death means her disqualification from the test, and that's why she's upset. Eager for a fight, the girl also says she doesn't care about the battle between them, but that it meant wasting her year. Therefore, Siebold should also waste a year, otherwise she won't be able to sleep due to frustration. The old man says the girl has a problematic personality, and admits that the young woman's strength is not low level, and he can tell just by seeing how she defeated the team members. Still, the protagonist decides to attack him. Feeling the pressure, Siebold says he'll have to give it his all. A spell is cast in the old man's direction. Riley launches 5 magic missiles. Despite all the effort, the man doesn't seem unaffected. Mockingly, the old man says that those simple magic missiles can't break his defense. Watching from a distance, Greenwar sees that his friend lacks offensive power, and that it's impossible to penetrate a sophisticated shield just with clustered magic. He thinks about what he could use inside the ruin they're in, looking to the side. The young man notices the presence of the red-haired girl. The boy becomes furious seeing that while he and Riley were fighting, the girl didn't help and is still scared. While thinking this, the young man realizes something, wondering if she really is just scared. It occurs to him that the girl wasn't muttering just out of fear. He quickly calls out to the protagonist. The young man says that the decisive move they need is right in front of them. It's the ancient magic. Ready for the fight, the old man says that if things continue like this, the test will end anyway, and advises the girl to conserve her energy and accept the outcome. Greenwar, on the other hand, suggests that the girl buy time until Olivia is ready. Riley tells the old man that he needs to think a little about surrendering while she tries to buy time. He uses thought acceleration to speed up the casting of the ancient magic. The boy watches Olivia prepare. He approaches and says they are in the outer garden, so there's no risk of being buried. The girl is using ancient runes and attracts attention. Greenwar remembers when Olivia failed the test and says that it makes sense that she is confident. The boy tries to help, as the battle draws near, and tells the girl that the invocation is missing, the initial chant. It is explained that this happens quite often, and that, over time, some invocations or chants disappear, and that's why, no matter how much the young woman chants, the magic won't be cast and will remain stagnant. Realizing that he can help, Greenwar says the missing parts of the chant, since he created it thousands of years ago. The boy gives orders for Riley to talk to the red-haired girl. The girl tells Olivia not to stop chanting and to listen to her. She then states that a crucial verse is missing from the invocation, and that she will say the verse. She says it's a secret that she can't explain, but asks the girl to try it. The plan works and the girl nods in confirmation. She watches closely, and says she will take down Siev along with the other girl. The old man looks at her and says he thought the protagonist would give up. Greenwar approaches Olivia and whispers the missing prayer in her ear. Meanwhile, the girl tries to buy even more time. Suddenly, a great power is unleashed and several explosions begin to occur. Siebold wonders what is happening. The whole place begins to tremble with magical resonance, and the man asks what the girl is trying to do. She deflects the question and tells him to ask Greenwar. The spells continue to be cast by Olivia, and the old man realizes that she is from the arcane school of flames. The man wonders if the girl is trying to use ancient magic, but he doesn't understand how she could know that kind of power. Riley orders Siebold to interrupt the summoning, but if he fails to get through the young woman, he will lose his life. The personality of the The protagonist is once again labeled as problematic by the old man. Meanwhile, more power is launched at him. With great power in his hands, Riley dissipates. Olivia continues chanting with the help of the boy, Zebold. He notices the heat increasing at an enormous rate. When he realizes his opponent is right next to him, the girl looks him directly in the eyes. Desperately, the battle continues. Riley needs more power to stay strong and looks at Olivia, who continues to chant louder. The girl unleashes another great power toward the old man. A little more time and the situation will be under control. Olivia finally manages to say everything she wanted and an explosion occurs. Green War declares that the great mother of magic rules and that the young woman is not just a fool chasing illusions. The red-haired girl transforms and gains great power. She takes a staff and manages to cast more spells. Riley watches to see what is happening. Olivia commands the power to ignite into flames. A lot of fire begins to erupt in the area. The flames consume everything, and GMW says that the girl has great power. After that, he notices that Riley is on the ground. He observes that his injuries are not serious, and the girl runs towards him, scared. She asks if the boy is okay, and says she will heal him. However, she stumbles and falls. She realizes her legs are weak, and GMW comments that she used too much magic. She has concentration, determination, and a talent specialized in ancient magic, so she has the potential to grow, and could be of help to the boys later on. The girl wakes up saying she is fine, and that there is something she needs to do. Approaching Garen's team, GMW says that the bodies are burned, there is magical backlash, and the internal injuries are severe. They will spend weeks in the temple to recover. The man cast a high-level defensive spell at the last moment. If not for that, they would not have survived. The girl says he is a high-level mage for being able to block that powerful explosion, and wonders why. She asks why he went so far to protect them. Green says that although they were not the target of the ancient magic, thanks to CA's barrier, they remained intact despite the explosion. It was not difficult to deduce why he did it. He never intended to harm them from the beginning. The mage asks, then, why he attacked her with the intent to kill her, and her friend replies that she attacked first. Ray restores his magic circuits and comments that that should be enough. His companion mentions that the rest could be treated at the temple with potions. She takes the golden golem's core and tells Zebold not to take it the wrong way, but she will not rest until she pays him back for what he did. They will take the test together again next year. The girl picks up the core and throws it off a cliff. She asks her companion if anyone would find it. He says the core's magical power is weak and it does not have much time left, so it is impossible. Then, she asks about the other one, and the mage says it would be a shame to throw away something they fought so hard for, so she keeps it as a memento. Then, the girl asks Olivia if she wants to go to the end of the test, since there is an area behind them that looks like an outdoor garden, and the girl agrees. They head to the garden. GMW notices that no monsters have appeared, and the boy says it is surprising to find a peaceful place among the ruins. Olivia asks Riley how he knew about the verse in the magic, and the boy replies that he promised not to talk about it. She accepts, and GMW comments that she is difficult to deal with. Sadly, the girl asks if V was really dead, and everyone they exchange glances. The girl comments that it's a shame, since she thought they could easily pass this test, and also she's sad about losing a companion with whom she had formed a bond. They gained experience even with regrets. In these complex situations, Riley's skills improved explosively. One more year would be enough. Then they will take the selection test again, attract the attention of the 5 great magic towers, and enter the magic tower. Yanir Anez, and they will finally get revenge on the impostor who claimed to be the disciple of his disciple. Yanir Anez is the master of the magic tower who stole Martha Farich's dream of immortality. Green War says that to be more precise, immortality was his dream. They asked her to create it for him. Riley asks why, and he says that if the contractor doesn't die, there's no need to train new mages. They can research together with one contractor forever. That way he can more quickly find the one who turned him into a piece of paper. Even before Martha, there were many attempts at immortality, and many of his disciples helped, as it was research he developed alongside them. Now they no longer have any reason to get revenge on Ian, so they will work together, which is no big deal, but it's training. The girl replies that it would be nice to train in peace. As she says this, Olivia is startled, and the girl notices her face is getting dirty. When she looked up, she saw Rebecca wrapped in furs, asking to be untied. Riley, surprised, asks why the girl is alive, and she, shouting, says he's talking nonsense. The moment they see each other, he comments that Garen said he killed her. Then the girl says he lied, that he said that to make the girl give up on the test. Green War comments that he understands why they thought she was dead. With the dragon skin around her, her presence would have been faint. After they untie her, she comments that Riley's skills impress her every time and asks how he breaks spells so quickly, since she couldn't break free. He says it's the result of hard work. Becky comments that it seems like training, and the girl tells her companion that something feels strange. He says the girl has no serious injuries anywhere, it's as if she didn't fight at all. As he approaches the girl, Riley says he understands the man lied, but he wants to know something and then asks why he spared her. Rebecca says the man told her that if he killed her, he would be no better than her, so he spared her and let her live. Instead, he told her to drop out of the test as a sign of repentance, which she finds ridiculous. The mage comments that she has no intention of telling the truth, and her companion agrees, and says that Becky must have inflicted a wound on him so deep and unforgivable that he couldn't kill her, yet she was perfectly fine. She was hiding the truth with obvious lies. To be more precise, the girl is reluctant to reveal the truth, and he wonders if it's because the test is being watched. But if she's hiding it, they will play her game. The mage says the important thing is that the girl is alive. Seeing them alive, the girl comments that they must have given up on the test and that the man asked them to, since she was dead. They looked at each other, and Rebecca began to lament that she would have to take the test for a fourth time. She was hoping they could escape Evchiev, but he thought it was impossible. However, Riley shows the core to the girl, who becomes euphoric and praises her team. She asks how the man did not take the core, and the girl asks what happened to her, starting to stutter. On the other side, Garen's team is leaving, and one of the girls is crying and apologizing. The boy, carrying the man on his back, says it was all his fault and that he was careless because he underestimated the girl for being a low-level mage, and that he could have subdued her if he had gone all out from the beginning, and he apologizes to the man. Arpel and Dorothy could have subdued her. There are many marks showing they gave their all, yet they were defeated by a girl who was just a low-level mage. Riley fought Garen on equal terms at the last moment, and to think that a genius who can surpass Ox really exists. I knew he was a monster, but not on that level. The man then tells the boy he could walk on his own. The boy says he needs more rest, and the man says it is okay, and that it was all his fault. It is a shame, since he had a reason to enter the 5 Great Towers this year, and the boy tells the man he will always have next year. After they both encouraged him, he thanks them, and someone appears in front of the group. It was Pamela von Hasselpart and her team, with a golem core, at the worst possible time. Encountering an opponent like that, when their magic and stamina are depleted, would be better to avoid a fight and make it clear they do not want one. But before they could speak, she and her team kneel on the ground, surrendering. Pamela says she will hand over the core and asks them to spare their lives. One of the team members asks the girl why they surrendered, since the man looks like he is about to collapse at any moment. The team leader asks the boy if he will fight Cersiev, and the boy freezes. Then he asks his master what they will do, and she replies that they still have about 10 minutes, and that it was not impossible to find a core. The administrator observes the test results. The teams of Riley, Garen, and Pamela appear. The team comes out and faces a snowstorm. Riley then says that the air outside is nice. Rebecca comments that the group received excellent care thanks to the kindness of the priests, but that even after spending 2 days in the temple, she still feels tired. Sleepily, she asks the team if the test is in 1 week. Then, in a flashback, the administrator says the test will be an individual interview with each Tower Master, and that more details will be given later. Greenware argues that an individual interview is a direct opportunity to highlight the strengths of his disciple. He adds that he will finally come face to face with Yanir Ains. Rebecca says she is going to rest, and Riley asks where she will be staying. She replies that she knows someone in Wilhelm, so she will stay at their house for a while. Confused, she asks the girl if she had not said that before, and the girl affirms that at that moment she recommended the protagonist to a celestial whale and said she would stay with an acquaintance. Becky jokes with the girl, saying she should visit him again, leaving the young woman furious. She says goodbye to the group and says that they will see each other at the final test. Riley asks Olivia where she will be staying, and she replies that it will be at the Grand Hotel, Steamwood, where everyone will coincidentally be staying. As the group walks to the hotel, the mage stops and says that she'll stop by the Arcady Library first, and the girl tells Greenmore that she just wants to go to the room and rest. She continues saying that she plans to do nothing all day, just eat ice cream and enjoy a hot bath, and Greenmore just nods awkwardly. Riley arrives at the hotel and opens the door with positive thoughts, but she runs into Garen's team there. The man comments with surprise that she would be there too, and Dorothy steps forward, locks the door and calls out to the girl in a chilling tone. Dorothy recognizes the girl and asks if her name is Riley. Showing great familiarity, she hugs her and says her full name, Dorothy Greard, saying immediately that the two of them should be friends. Riley mockingly asks if someone offered a core to Cersei so they could pass to the second test, and Dorothy jokes that they did. Greenwar is very confused and asks if they really bought the test, and that fan loyalty might be a fair way to get approval. Garen says that everyone passed, and Greenwar says he doesn't want to think about it anymore. Dorothy, very enthusiastically, asks Riley if they can do the test together, since they won't be competing against each other. The mage agrees but asks why the girl likes her so much, even after hitting her. And Dorothy replies that it was part of the test and that she likes cute and pretty girls. Arpel asks Riley if she would like to join them, and she says she had other plans, but the young man convinces her by saying that there will be special dishes from a real chef. She joins the group and delights in the culinary wonders. And Greenwar comments that the young woman has a great passion for food, and Riley says she's just growing. Pamela asks the protagonist if she knew where the last core was, and she says it was at the base of a cliff so deep that you couldn't see the bottom. She continues in a panicked tone, saying that the administrators don't think about anything, since they left the core in such a hard-to-reach place, and that she is going to question the person responsible. Greenwar says that they were the ones who did that and that the girl should keep quiet. Garen praises her for finding the core with only 10 minutes left in the test, and says that the title of Wilhelm's best scout is well-deserved. But Pamela argues that it was the mage from her guild, named Gilbert Winfried, who found it. She continues, saying that Gilbert is her dear disciple, and that he was also responsible for discovering almost all the golden golems in the ruins. Garen, interested, says he would like to know more about him, and Pamela agrees, saying that Gilbert's mana affinity was incredible. Greenwar comments that the mage doesn't react to praise, but that he was quite talented, capable of becoming a high-ranking mage before he dies, and the young woman calls him arrogant. Pamela continues to shower the mage with praise and scoffs, saying that no one passed the first test faster than him. Dorothy says she heard that Rebecca Duncan was the fastest and asks if Gilbert was faster than her, and the girl says they should ignore Rebecca for using tricks. Continuing with the praise for the young man, she reveals that he managed to pass the test by finding the administration office in 2 days, placing second in the rankings. He responds by saying that if she really took 2 days on the test, then she wasn't actually in second place. Pamela says it's not fair to compare someone who used a found path with someone like Rebecca, who used clones, but Garen responds that he wasn't talking about her. The man looks at Riley and asks how long it took her to pass the first test, and Greenwar comments that he's asking even though he already knows the answer. The mage reveals to the group that it took her half a day, or, to be exact, 6 hours and 30 minutes to complete the test, leaving everyone at the table in shock. Garen is very proud of the girl, and Greenwar asks if she's his granddaughter or something. Pamela is completely in shock and asks if it really took her 6 hours and 30 minutes, while the young mage stops eating and falls completely silent. Gilbert puts down his fork and stands up, starting to question how Riley, being a low-level mage, could accomplish such a feat, and says he has his doubts about it. With obvious jealousy, he points a finger at the mage and asks if she really deserves to take the final test. The boy comments that the magical disruption that spread throughout Wilhelm wasn't easy to overcome and that, due to the residual magic, spells don't work correctly, and he accuses Riley of using dishonesty to get this far. Dorothy interrupts, asking if he can defeat her in a fight. However, the boy remains silent, since she is a veteran mage at the peak of the mid-level. The girl tells him to shut up, since the mage defeated her and Arpel at the same time. Surprised, he asks Arpel, who agrees, and says that she passed the selection test fairly. He mutters that it makes no sense that a low-level girl passed, when Garen interrupts him. The man says that everyone understands his feelings, but since she passed the second test, there's no way to doubt the situation. At first, he also had his doubts. Dorothy underestimated her and paid the price. The same with Arpel. Having doubts about an opponent's abilities isn't a problem. Doubt is a basic quality for a mage, and he finishes by asking if it was really necessary to express those doubts in a place like this, and suggests he take a moment to reflect. Gilbert becomes enraged and embarrassed by the reprimand. This was a place to celebrate passing the test, and they were in the presence of more experienced mages. It wasn't necessary to express such doubt and hostility. Pamela, trying to calm the situation, says that her disciple has been with her for a long time, and that she will educate him properly later, and she pats him on the back, telling him to apologize. He then bows and apologizes for his rudeness. The man says that he understands well, and that if he really has doubts, he should challenge Riley to a duel, and that she would probably be happy to accept. When asked, the girl says that a duel would be welcome, and that it would be an honor. Greenwar asks if it's necessary to omit killing intent at the end, and the girl replies that it's annoying to be challenged, but now everything is calm. He agrees that there shouldn't be any more disturbances, but says that he has a bad feeling. Someone knocks on the door and Pamela tells them to come in. Olivia opens the door, saying that the hotel staff told her to come here. Upon seeing her, the woman screams in fright. The girl keeps screaming for help, and Greenwar comments, saying that he felt that was going to happen. Then the girl says it seems their meal will be noisy for a while. Everyone says their goodbyes. Riley asks her friend if there is a way to accelerate the second awakening, and he asks if she is feeling her limits. The second awakening is a blessing that comes on the day a mage feels that they have become an adult. It is the final phase where the attributes blooming occurs, and the mage's level increases rapidly. Greenware comments that he met many mages in the second trial, and it's natural to feel her limits when facing them. As for utility magic, the girl knows enough, but her offensive means are quite limited, and the specializations in tracking and nullification are merely auxiliary. Her only offensive spell is the magic missile. Greenware comments that the best way to overcome that limit would be to accelerate the second awakening, which is not impossible, but very difficult. This action goes against the flow of magic, so it inevitably involves a very difficult and complex process. He explains that it would be very painful, difficult, and exhausting, and that so far only a few of his disciples have succeeded. Besides, her talent wouldn't help. It's a task that depends entirely on perseverance and effort. He asks why go through that difficulty if, anyway, she would awaken in about 5 years, and why not dedicate that time to training instead? But if she still wants to, he won't stop her, and the girl agrees to do it with a smile. The boy says that if it's what she wants, there's nothing else to be done. In fact, even if she had said no, he had planned to make her accept, and if he provoked her, it would be for revenge. They were both reading a magic book about mana and how it will bloom. The blooming method was simple: just fill the mana. Riley asks if the early awakening reaction is to compensate for the lack of mana, and the boy is in agreement, but they need high-quality mana for the early awakening. He explores that contradiction from now on. The girl will have to lie. Instead of increasing her mana, she will have to trick her mana heart. When the seed blooms, her body will assume she has completed the second awakening, and then it will naturally transform into a full-fledged mage, forcing her mana circuits to expand, while also increasing the strength of her mana heart. The girl asks if it's possible, and the boy answers that it is, and that if there are no variables, it will take up to 5 weeks. But actually, it will take longer since there is a lot to do. She needs to build a barrier inside her body to increase the amount of mana and hold it for long enough, among other dozens of processes, to which she says it would be difficult, and Greenwar comments that she'll feel as if she's dying, and that it might be the most difficult thing she has ever experienced. Smiling, he says that the size of the reward is always proportional to the pain, so Riley says she will try it and casts magic on her heart. When she feels pain, the boy tells her to endure it. The next few weeks would be horrible. 5 days after starting the awakening, Riley repeats Greenwar's words about how her weeks would be horrible and painful. However, she managed to get a large portion of magic and comments that he only said that to motivate her, which wasn't true. He comments that thanks to that, she completed the awakening early, faster than anyone, and thanks her friend who reinforces that it wasn't just to cheer her on. Greenwarden asks if the girl has considered taking all the pain at once, because finishing 5 weeks in 5 days would be 7 times more intense than the original process. Riley comments that she found it manageable, so she didn't see the need to prolong it so much, and the boy comments that other disciples usually fainted. His disciple says she has been through worse training in the Thieves' Guild, so this type of pain was nothing. He asks what they did to her to make her so immune to pain, and she comments that she went through horrible tortures disguised as mental training, like having food in front of her and receiving dry food with no drink, only water, and that was more painful than the awakening. Greenwarden says good work, and that her attribute is lightning. She asks if that's good, and the boy says yes, that it's versatile and unique, carrying the destructive power of fire and the agility of wind. It doesn't lack in attack, defense, or support. Greenwarden says he intends to teach her all its characteristics and train her to be a complete lightning mage with no weaknesses. He then asks if she was ever struck by lightning, since her affinity for it is strong. The nature of a mana attribute isn't decided by chance. It accumulates and is imbued with one's personality, disposition, memories, environment, and traumas. For example, a mage who almost drowned might obtain the water attribute, and one who grew up in a windy region might get the wind attribute. The girl says she has never seen lightning, so the boy comments that her nature as a thief might have transformed into an attribute, but even so, such a strong affinity doesn't come from nowhere. It's still a bit questionable. Riley says she's satisfied, as her mana has grown stronger and she wants to test her new ability. Then Greenwarden says that it's fine if she's satisfied and that practical experience is important, calling her to go out. The problem was finding a target to test her skills on, so he calls her to the city. As they were passing by, Gilbert appears in their path. He challenges her to a duel, and his friend's eyes light up. The duel becomes an event, as everyone comes to watch, including the evaluators. 5 days earlier, the young man was replaying the test in his mind, how much he achieved, and how he wouldn't be afraid of the female mage. 4 days ago, he was looking for her to propose the duel. 3 days ago, he discovered that the girl stayed in a room across from Green Warden's and never left it. 2 days ago, he knocked on the door and no one answered, assuming she was afraid of the duel. The day before, Gilbert saw that the door was still locked and called her a coward. On the day of the duel, the young man was sure it was fear, even though he was going to lose. She and Green Warden were talking, and the mage wondered if they were just preparing a strategy to attack each other in the second test. Pamela calls out to the boy, who was lost in his thoughts about losing. She tells him not to be nervous, since the girl was a low-level mage and her supply was limited. Besides, she had no attribute. The duel was being watched by the giants of the magic world, the magic representatives. It was his chance to prove his skill. Gilbert agrees that he is a genius, however, the announcer. It starts with the participants introducing the mage trained by Pamela and Riley, who is acknowledged by Darren. The duel begins. The young man comments that he's not afraid of her after his master's advice, and that it's time to show the difference in class. Both prepare to attack. Riley falls after just 2 hits, surprising everyone, and the mage comments that his master was right, as the duel was overwhelmingly in his favor. Darren appears with his team and one of them comments that the boy has great talent, while another apologizes about the dinner. The man asks him to be his disciple, and he says he's grateful, but he is only Pamela's disciple. So, he says he will support him even if he isn't his disciple because he is a man of conviction. The administrator appears saying there's no need for the final selection test, as he would have immediate entry into the 5 magic towers. Faced with so many proposals, Gilbert laughs uncontrollably. However, Riley is standing and asks GMW what happened to the young man. He was laughing uncontrollably on the ground, and the book replies that he must be having a good dream. Greenware expected him to at least be on the same level as a training dummy. The mage couldn't withstand even a single blow. The girl comments that, despite that, they perfectly achieved the goal of promoting themselves. Smiling, GMW says everyone is looking at her as if she were a monster, and that's the kind of relationship they wanted. Darren approaches and says he didn't think her attribute had blossomed already, and asks how she did it with the words already prepared by the guys. She says she had a moment of enlightenment and comments that, while she was fighting with the man, she had a sudden realization. So as not to lose it, she locked herself away to meditate, and that's when the awakening occurred. He comments that his instincts were correct, and calls her a genius. The administrator says she saw the battle and comments on her lightning attribute, saying it suits her well. Becky asks if the girl isn't going to thank her for gathering everyone to watch the duel and that, thanks to her, it was a success. The mage says that with that logic, the girl passed the test for her, and tells her to thank her first. However, they are interrupted by Dorothy, who praises her and congratulates her, taking her hands. Tired of the flattery, GMW comments that it's time to get an answer. The administrator appears, saying she'll take the opportunity to announce some additional news. In this case, the final test consists of an individual interview with each master of the towers. Each of the 5 great towers has the right to nominate. The candidate who receives a nomination will have the first interview with the corresponding tower. If they are accepted for admission into the first one, all subsequent interviews will be cancelled. Green War comments that this whole thing seems like some kind of courtship, and the girl comments that if a friend receives a nomination, they are practically accepted. Dorothy asks how the order is decided if someone receives more than 1 nomination, and she replies that the person can choose for themselves. Riley comments that if the nomination is happening now, it means the list was decided about 2 days ago, and her master agrees. So the duel was useless, and GMW agrees, commenting that he should have convinced her to awaken her attribute sooner. But it's already done and it doesn't matter if they receive the nomination or not. At the Arraigns Magic Tower, the woman begins by announcing the candidates that each tower has exercised its right to nominate. First, the nomination from the Blue Magic Tower of Uria. This magic tower, founded at the same time as the Empire, cemented its prestige by producing the Archmage Jan Siskin, and its nomination from the Blue Magic Tower of Uria went to Garen Edward Bond C., which was expected, as the 5 great towers seek well-rounded mages. Next, the second nomination right from the White Magic Tower of Duck, and the third nomination right from the magnificent Violet Tower of Ga, also went to Garen. His fellow students are astonished by so many nominations. The nomination right from the Red Magic Tower of Yadonggrotten went to Olivia. She gets excited, and Rebecca mockingly comments that her last name comes from a prestigious family. It's no wonder she was considered talented, and she says that Olivia was truly strange, wondering why she would dabble in ancient magic with such a lineage. However, Garen interrupts her. He points out that Olivia managed to manifest powerful ancient magic, but Rebecca didn't see it because she wasn't there. Rebecca tries to argue, but the administrator interrupts, saying that he was telling the truth because the girl performed ancient magic, which caught the attention of the master of the Red Tower. Astonished, Becky asks if it's true. Garen says that the Red Tower focuses mainly on powerful fire spells, so it's natural that they would notice Olivia, just as everyone noticed Garen. The woman then begins to speak about the 5th nomination, the right of nomination from the colorless magic tower of Iranis. Everyone is tense, and Riley's name is announced out loud. The Master of Magic from Hantes, Jan Hantes, used the right of nomination for her. All the nominated mages were conversing with members of their towers during a banquet. Ray, observing everything, comments that they're treating the candidates as if they've already passed. Garen says the final test is tomorrow, but the banquet has such a relaxed atmosphere that the one-on-one interview with the Tower Master might just be a formality, and that the final test might not actually be a test. A drunk Rebecca appears at their side, asking if the girl has spoken with the officials, and she replies not much. She comments that the Uria Tower was the best, but the other towers, but after what she did, nobody liked her. And when they ask what she did, she asks if they didn't already know. Before she can say more, Garen appears to interrupt them. He brings up her mother, as the girl's mother was a renowned alchemist affiliated with the Uria Tower. Riley asks her if she will go there to be with her mother, and she says they can't work together. Riley asks why, and the girl replies that her mother passed away 11 years ago. She then mocks Riley, saying that now is the time to apologize, since a sheltered girl like her wouldn't know. And, leaving everyone at the table shocked, Riley replies that she also lost her entire family, demanding an apology from her. Becky chugs all her wine to ease the tension. She comments that she used to frequent the tower when she was young and grew close to the master, even calling her aunt. Riley asks if it was really appropriate to call her that, and the girl replies that it wouldn't be a problem. She says she stayed in the annex with her throughout the entire test. She asks if that wasn't wrong, and the mage replies that many are dishonest, pointing to Arpel and saying that his mentor is also the administrator of the selection test. The girl asks why the administrator is so young, and Rebecca says that the high officials of Iranis can maintain eternal youth thanks to the ritual of immortality. She wasn't the only one with connections, and even Garen was a colleague of the Uria Tower Master. Riley asks Green War if that's true, and he comments that the magical world is small and that the mage's networks are full of connections. The mage asks if those connections can't influence the results of the selection test. He says no, and uses her as an example, a rookie that everyone is interested in. Garen asks the girl if she plans to go to Iranis, then the girl comments that the man's expression has been strange all day, so she confirms that she will go there. The man starts to say that she should reconsider, but the administrator appears, saying that the girl must accept. Then, grabbing a chair, she asks if she can sit with them to talk. She apologizes for the late introduction and says she's the head administrator of the selection. Her name is Isabella, a Tribux mage, and when Rebecca asks, she says she is Olivia's great aunt. Green War comments that she must be about the same age as the girl's grandmother, and, when asked if she's from Iranis, she says she is one of the 7 elders, and tells Riley she won't regret it. Her explanation continued uninterrupted. 300 years ago, the 5 great towers were established to maintain their reputation, nature, and vision for Iranis. It was as if she had memorized a prepared speech. She says that, most importantly, they achieved the ritual of immortality after inheriting it from the archmage Marta Ferric. In the end, it was a ridiculous story. The woman says the master was very interested in Riley, to the point of using the right of nomination without hesitation, and that he also asked her to relay the message that if she joins the tower, they will support her in every way possible. She says they can learn more details during the interview and wishes them a good evening. Green War comments that he knows Jay wasn't a disciple of Marta, and the fact that she's spouting lies so easily means she's in cahoots with the Tower Master, and that he would have punched her in the face if it weren't for her role. Riley asks what she should do, and the guy says it's not just him venting, she should just focus on the interview and rest. After the banquet, back in the room, someone knocks on the door, but they don't know who it is. From behind the door, Rebecca yells, but Garen pushes her aside, asking them to open up. They wonder why they've come here. After entering, the man places an anti-eavesdropping device on the door, and GMW wonders what kind of conversation they were planning to have. Then, the man tells Riley not to go to the Hans Tower. When they ask why, the man says that a war will start soon and, once it's over, Hantes will no longer be on the map. Green War and his disciples start to comment, but Becky calls out to the man. She starts asking how Iranis won't be on the map, and he just says she's drunk. After clearing her head, the girl asks what he meant by that, and after some pressure from Garen, he starts to talk about how she got the nomination and its history, how the tower's mindset was open and adaptable to changes, and doesn't look down on new opinions, developing rapidly, which is why it was the favorite. But the reality was different. Rebecca asks the girl if she knows why they became so strong in just 300 years, and she says that it was because the Tower Master was a disciple of Martha. After Martha's death, no one reached the title of Archmage for 300 years, and that title would have a significant impact. Becky says she wasn't wrong, but that there was another reason for the growth of the Hantes Tower, what GMW and Martha spent their whole lives researching, but that and achieved, or rather is believed to have achieved. The magic of immortality. The mage granted immortality to the 7 elders and other high-ranking officials who swore absolute loyalty to him. It was truly a dictatorship, because thanks to the ritual, the absolute ruler, the Tower Master, doesn't change. Like any organization, the Tower cannot escape the influence of politics. But by maintaining absolute power, it can move in a single direction. Becky continues, saying that wealthy and noble people support the Tower to receive the immortality ritual, so they have no financial problems. Riley says that the Tower only managed to prosper in those 300 years thanks to the immortality ritual, but that something seems wrong. The undead who defied death and the necromancers who used dark magic, those who dare to defy death and betray the laws of heaven, are marked with an indelible stigma, a stigma called demonic energy. The girl wonders why the mages of the Hantes Tower who use the ritual don't emit demonic energy, and Becky speaks at the same time as her. The woman replies that it is unknown, as there are ongoing debates about the pros and cons of this ritual, and that's why she is not an archmage. Riley then asks GMW the same question, but not even he knows how to answer, and that's why he considers the mage a fraud. It's a ritual that not even Green War achieved, but the problem was how to eliminate that fraud. But during the 300 years he was asleep, it seems not everyone was an idiot. It would be impossible for Rebecca to gather so much information alone, which means that, besides him and Riley, other forces oppose the Hantes magic towers. Becky says there are 3 forces opposing the tower. The Imperial family, which fears the tower will surpass it indefinitely in power because of the ritual. The Grand Temple, which was worried that the destruction of the life and death cycle would destroy the laws of heaven. And the rest of the 5 magic towers, which were wary of the rapid growth of the magic tower and took measures to keep it in check. Riley comments that it must have been a lot of pressure, and Rebecca says that, even so, the tower continued to grow steadily, because the tower never hesitated to eliminate obstacles. They would use any means necessary for that, and Becky comments that she and Garen lost people valuable to them in the process, and finishes by saying that they killed her mother and Charon. GMW comments that he knew those feelings, as they both wanted revenge against the same target as him. The man then says that this is the reason why Riley couldn't enter, and the girl said that if you've enjoyed the story so far, leave a like so that Yuki can keep bringing quality content like this. What did you think of this story, bros? I hope you like it. Until the next video, take care.